Okay. All right. Thank you. My name is Mike Lyons. I'm an assistant prosecutor with the County Prosecutor's Office, and the commissioners have asked me to assist with conducting the hearing. And this is a hearing on a petition for the annexation to the City of Brunswick of 5.1207 acres, more or less, that is presently in the township of Hinckley. Now we are, the way we're going to proceed is I've had a discussion with the attorneys for the parties. The necessary parties here will be the petitioner, the party who requested the annexation, Hinckley Township, and the City of Brunswick. Under the statutes related to this, they are the necessary parties. We'll begin with identifying the items that have been filed, and I'm going to ask the clerk of the commissioners, Rhonda Beck, to answer questions on that, and I'll ask you to take a now. This will be a little bit awkward, but I'm going to hand the court reporter one of these, and we're going to mark these. The exhibits from the county will be marked MC 1 to be the first one, and we'll mark them consecutively after that. All right, and I will give copies of these to the attorneys for the parties.
Thank you.
You may need to coordinate this a little bit. Thank you, Mr. Fisher. All different parts of the room. Rhonda, please state your name.
Rhonda Beck.
And what is your position with the county?
I'm the clerk of the board.
All right. And the petition for annexation, these documents are filed with you?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to hand you what's been marked as MC1. Can you identify that?
It's the petition for annexation that was filed with our office on February 1st, 2023.
Let's take a look at it. Is that an accurate copy of the petition that was filed?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, I'm handing you what's been marked as MC2. Can you identify that?
This is the memorandum that I sent to our tax maps office requesting notice in writing from tax maps as to the accuracy of the legal description and perimeter of the property.
And tax maps is operated by the county engineer, is it not?
Yes.
All right. And that was a request to them.
Yes.
That they review the accuracy of the map and the description of the property.
Yes.
All right. Thank you. Right, and handing you what's been marked as MC3. Can you identify that?
This is the memorandum from tax maps regarding their review of the annexation plat and legal description. It's dated February 2nd.
And did they find that the map and description were accurate?
Yes, they did.
Okay. Handing you what has been marked as MC4. Would you identify that for us?
This is the letter that I sent to Dan Calvin of Critchfield regarding the hearing date notice for
What is
today's
the date-
hearing.
What is the date of that letter?
The date of this letter is February 2nd, 2023.
Okay, so, and that identifies today as the hearing date, is
Yes.
that right?
Mm-hmm.
And you sent that to the petitioner's attorney?
Yes.
All right. Handing you what's been marked as MC5. What is that document?
This is an affidavit for the agent for the petitioner's affidavit regarding the notice of filing, and it's dated February 6th of 23. It's the notice to adjoining property owners, and our office received it on February 7th, 2023.
And that is an affidavit
Yes.
attesting to the, providing notice to the adjoining property owner.
Yes.
When did you receive that? Do you know?
February 7th, 2023.
Okay. Okay, I'm handing you what's been marked as MC6. And what is that?
This is commissioner meeting minutes from their February 7th, 2023 meeting that provides notice by Commissioner Swedick that this petition had been received by our office.
And was that a regular commissioner meeting?
Yes.
Was that the first meeting after the filing of the petition?
Yes.
Okay, so the, in that meeting, the receipt of the petition was identified.
Yes, on page 2.
All right, thank you. All right, MC7 is the next item, and what is that?
This is correspondence from Critchfield Law Firm dated February 14th, 2023, received by our office on that date, and it's regarding proof of service to notification to the city and township.
And what is included in that document?
Proof of mailings,
The certified
certified mail
receipts,
return receipts, yeah.
to both the township and the city?
Yes.
All right. And when did you receive that? Do you know?
I received this on February 14th. It was by hand delivery.
I'm handing you what's been marked as MC8. And can you identify that?
This is an affidavit prepared by the agent for petitioners regarding proof of publication in the Medina Gazette.
And does that indicate when the notice of this hearing was published?
Yeah, it was published on, looks like, what is this? February 8th?
copy of the advertisement attached to that?
Yes, there is.
Is that an accurate copy of the document that was submitted?
Yes, it is.
All right, just a little bit more. I'm handing you what's been marked as MC9. Can you identify that document?
This is City of Brunswick's resolution number 8-2023 declaring their intent to provide services, which was adopted on March 13th, 2023. I received this by email on March 14th, 2023, and by regular mail on March 20th of 2023. Yes, it's accurate.
Is that an accurate copy of the document
Yes,
that was
sir.
submitted? All right, I've handed you what's been marked as MC10, I believe. Is that right?
Yes.
And can you identify that document?
Yeah, this is a report, a staff report prepared by Planning Services Department regarding the subject property.
And I believe that this report is not something that the statute requires. Is this something that Medina County has traditionally done?
Yes, it's tradition. It was done in the past, and prior administration ceased requesting this from Planning Services, but our current administration wanted to resume getting these reports as it's helpful to have the zoning information and such.
Okay, so is that an accurate copy of the report submitted by the county planning department?
Yes, it is.
Handing you what's been marked as MC11. Can you identify that document?
This is a notice of appearance of counsel filed by Alfred Schrader.
All right. When was that received?
I received this March 16th, 2023.
Okay. And is that an accurate copy of the document you received?
Yes, it is.
And finally, I believe, this has been a bit laborious, but it might save us all a little time in the long run. All right, I'm handing you what has been marked as MC12. Can you identify that for us?
This is a motion for verification of certain signatures I received from Alfred Schrader on March 16th, 2023.
Okay, is that an accurate copy of the document you received?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Now, you, as the clerk for the commissioners, are you in charge of the receipt and organization of these documents?
Yes, I am.
And in case I didn't ask, you provided all these documents to me for presentation here today, is that right?
That's correct.
And are all the documents we reviewed here accurate copies of the documents that were submitted?
Yes, they are.
Okay.
Michael, can I ask a question? This is a hearing. Should people be sworn if they're going to give testimony?
Well, that's true. We should have sworn her in.
That's correct.
That's true.
Let's get with procedure, please.
Yes, sir. Thank you. All right. Why don't you swear her in? If you would, please.
Raise your right hand, ma'am. Do you swear or affirm that all of your statements that have been made have been true and accurate?
Yes, I do.
All right. So now you're under oath. I'm going to just ask you again. We've reviewed all these documents today. Are these documents accurate copies of the documents that were submitted to you?
Yes, they are.
Okay. All right. If any of the attorneys for the parties want to ask any questions, you may. Okay.
Just one, that last exhibit, 12, was there any evidence yet submitted to the commissioners verifying the signatures?
No, there is
Okay,
not.
that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Now, the next phase here will be, again, the three necessary parties are the petitioner, the township, and the city. The petitioner will be permitted to present any evidence first. Then the city, if the city has any evidence, and then the township will go last. After that, the statute does allow any person to testify at this hearing, either for or against the annexation. So, but after the necessary parties present their evidence, an opportunity will be given to anyone else who might want to, who is not a party, would be permitted to testify under oath. All right, are there any questions? If not, I believe that Mr. Calvin represents the petitioner. I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. I'd like to bring Tom Lunt up to testify from Discount Drug Mart. We will, of course, make sure that he gets sworn in.
You raise your right hand, please, sir. Do you swear or affirm that your testimony today will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Please state your name for the record.
Tom Lunt.
And where do you work and what is your position?
I work for Discount Drug Mart, and I'm their vice president of real estate operations.
And what was your immediately prior role at Discount Drug Mart?
Director of real estate.
Director of real estate. Can you tell me a little bit about Discount Drug Mart?
Yeah, one of my favorite subjects. We were founded in 1969. Our founder, Parvis Boujay, came to the company with less than $100 in his pocket. It's a real success story. He worked his way through pharmacy school, went to work for a company called J Drug for a few years, and then he decided, him and his wife Mildred went off on their own, and they opened up our first drug mart in 1969 out in Elyria. And here we are over 50 years later. We call Medina County our home. You know, our corporate headquarters is right down the street here. Our headquarters, we have 3 distribution centers, over 1 million square feet. We have 7 stores here in Medina County, 77 stores across the state. We're all in Ohio. We're an employee-owned company. Here in Medina County alone, we employ over 1,100 folks. And it's just, you know, we're not your typical drugstore. We're kind of a drugstore, grocery store combination. We're really a healthcare destination. We provide any medical supplies you might need. We have a division called Professional Medical Equipment Supplies. People can walk into the stores and they can get that walker or oxygen or hospital bed. We offer all those as well as your normal items you would find in a drugstore and a grocery store. Our pharmacists and some of the pharmacy techs are trained to give COVID vaccinations, flu vaccines. So we're truly a healthcare destination. And, I could go on all day, but I'll bore you guys. So.
And can you tell me a little bit about your job duties as Vice President of Real Estate Operations?
Well, everything real estate, sales and acquisitions, property management, lease administration, construction, new stores, expansions, remodels, you name it, it kind of falls under my umbrella there. So.
And can you tell me the relationship between Discount Drug Mart and the property that's subject to this annexation hearing?
That property is owned by an LLC that we formed, the West 130th and Route 303 LLC. I know, very unique name, which is owned by the Isomer Group, which is another real estate entity for Drug Mart, which is owned by Drug Mart.
Thank you. So I'm going to hand you what's previously been marked as Exhibit MC1. Could you tell me what that document is?
It's a petition for annexation to the City of Brunswick.
And does that appear to be an accurate copy of the petition?
Yes.
So if you could flip over to the second page, could you tell me who signed on behalf of the petitioner?
Yes, that would be myself.
And in what capacity?
As, at the time, Director of Real Estate.
And what date did you sign the petition?
January 31st of 2023.
And to your knowledge, did you have authority to sign the petition?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to hand you what's been marked as Exhibit P2. I'm not as good at this as Mr. Lyons was, so bear with me. Only got one copy here, but I'll give that to Mr. Schrader.
Thank you.
Okay, can you tell me what that document is?
Yes, that is an affidavit from Donald Bouget, our CEO of Discount Drug Mart.
Okay. Can you tell me what that affidavit says?
It says that I am authorized to sign the annexation petition.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Take that from you, and then I would like to put Exhibit P2 in the record.
Did you need that one?
I'll take that. Okay, now, actually, you hold on to that because we're going to flip back to the annexation
Yes.
petition.
Okay.
So can you flip over to Exhibit A for me? And tell me what you see there.
Yes, this is legal description for the property to be annexed.
Okay. And then flip over to Exhibit B and tell me what you see there.
And Exhibit B is the annexation plot that was prepared by the surveyor.
Okay. And then taking a look at that plat that was prepared by the surveyor, is that property contiguous to the City of Brunswick?
Yes, it is.
And then flip over to Exhibit C for me and tell me what you see there.
That is a list of all the adjacent property owners.
And then finally, on the petition, if you could go back to the first page on number 5 and tell me who did the petitioner name as its agent in this matter?
That would be yourself, Daniel P. Calvin.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to hand you a couple of documents now. Tell me what, the first one is marked Exhibit P3. Tell me what that one is and who that letter is to.
This letter is to, it's in regarding the, well, it's a copy of the letter to the Clerk of Council, the City of Brunswick.
Very good. And then what is Exhibit P4?
That is a copy of the letter to Hinckley Township.
Okay, thank you. I'll take those. And I'd like to submit Exhibit P3 and P4 to the record.
Do you have a copy?
Yeah.
Thank you.
gonna hand you what's been marked, what have been marked as exhibits P6 through 11. If you could take a glance at those and let me know what those are.
Yes. Yeah, those are copies of the letters to Medina County Commissioners, with the attached proof of service to the city and townships. And I think the actual proof of the original green cards are attached. So.
And those are actually the same as some exhibits marked by.
Those are not. Those are the letters that were actually sent to the neighboring property owners. What we submitted before was the affidavit saying that I did send them.
All right, thank you, sir.
I'd like to submit those exhibits P6 through 11. Okay. Is West 130th Route 303 LLC the only owner of the real estate that's subject to this annexation petition?
Yes.
So, just tell me big picture, can you tell me a little bit about why the petitioner decided to file this petition for annexation?
Yeah, we ran into some initial issues with the township on the development of the property. For those initial issues, it became clear to us that the City of Brunswick would be easier to work with throughout the development process, especially the building department.
Thank you. And in your opinion, will the general good of this property be served by the annexation?
Yes, yes.
And why is that?
Yeah, well, we'll be more economically and efficiently able to develop this property as needed. So.
And my final question here for you is, what effect do you anticipate that this store will have both on this property and the surrounding area?
Yeah, I mean, we're there to service all communities regardless of where we're at. So I think it's going to have a huge positive impact on everyone. Right now, right behind this property, there's a 120 home, brand new division of ranch style family homes being built by Pride One. It's going to greatly benefit them, but just to single them out would do an injustice. We are gonna, we'll have a nice connecting sidewalk and facility for them to be able to even just walk there. But we benefit everyone within a 3 mile range, a 5 mile range, whoever wants to come to the store. So, and like I said, we're truly a healthcare destination. We're not your typical drugstore. So you can come to us for, like I said before, groceries, sundries, prescriptions, medical supplies, to get your vaccinations. So, I truly believe that we benefit everybody, period, regardless of where we're at, the communities that we serve. So.
Okay. Thank you. No further questions?
Yes, we'll start with, does the city have any questions for this witness?
No, thank you. City of Brunswick has no questions.
Okay. Mr. Schrader for the township?
Thank you. I'm Attorney Al Schrader. I represent Hinckley Township. There's no corporate resolution giving you the authority to sign this annexation petition, is there?
No.
Okay. And my understanding was that originally you attempted to develop this property in the township. In fact, you asked for some zoning variances before the Hinckley Township zoning authorities, did you not?
Yes, that's correct.
And they granted them, didn't they?
They did, yes.
Okay. And so, what was the, you said there were some initial problems with the township that made you believe it'd be easier to work with the city, what were those problems with the township?
Well, we started this process years ago, and things were going well. We got the zoning variances, as you had mentioned, and you know, we were developing our site plan, moving forward to build. At the time, that during the process when we wanted to make determine whether we wanted to acquire this property or not, you know, we look at all the factors. Economically, we want to make sure that it makes sense for us to buy this property and build a store. You know, it'll cost us $5 to $6 to $7 million to build a store, and that doesn't include the acquisition of the property.
Right, and that would cost you the same whether it's in the township or the city, is that correct?
You know, it doesn't matter where we build, the construction costs are what they are.
Okay.
The difference is in acquiring the land and looking at all the other economic factors that a township or a city might have to offer, such as a tax abatement. So we were, the conversation was that there was a 50% tax abatement that was available for us. And so we moved forward with the acquisition of this property, assuming that we were going to realize that positive economic impact for us. And then for whatever reason, kind of switched gears on us and rejected that and voted it down. So now there was no tax abatement available.
Are you aware that the trustees recently revisited that issue and approved a 50% tax abatement?
Yeah, I understand that happened last week. But by the, you know, as we were working on development, well, you know, 7 months time passed between when we were working on this development and we filed for the annexation, and we didn't hear a word. So we moved forward to what was in the best interest for Discount Drug Mart.
Did you approach the township during that 7-month period and say, hey, what's going on, maybe we could work this out?
I think we reached out to them in a couple different ways, but I really don't think it was our responsibility.
Tell me how you reached out to them.
You know, meetings like this, I think there was casual conversation. I cannot give you any specifics.
Okay, no specifics. And you said that you thought, with regard to the building department, you do better in Brunswick. Now, first off, you do know that the building department for the township is the county building department, right?
Okay.
All right, now how is somehow the Brunswick City Building Department better than the county?
Well, and it's not just the building department itself. We're talking city services, police, fire, the streets, you know, that's all part of the process.
I see. Did you do a comparative study as to those services, what the township can do versus the city?
No.
You did not. When it comes to the road, you do know that of the entire boundary of your property along 130 County Road, if the annexation happens, there's about 175 feet or so, I'll bring the map out if you need your memory refreshed, that's going to be in the city if this annexation happens. So basically you're going to have county, city for a short distance, back to county. Do you think that might cause some road maintenance problems, questions as to who's supposed to maintain that 100 and some feet?
I can't answer that question.
Okay, didn't look at that, didn't study it,
Sure, we looked at it, but I can't answer that question.
because you don't know.
Correct.
Okay. And you do already own the property,
Yes.
so you had sufficient confidence in being able to build the store eventually, that you went ahead and purchased the land?
Yes.
Okay. And is it fair to say you could build it, whether it's in the township or in the city?
Yes.
Okay. Have you done any studies to see what effect, actual studies, to see what effect this annexation would have on the unincorporated area of the township within half a mile of your proposed site?
No.
Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
Any redirect?
Yeah, just one follow-up item. So this petition for annexation, is this the type of document that you typically sign in your role as Vice President of Real Estate Operations?
Yes.
And Donald Buja, what was his position again?
He is the CEO, owner and CEO of Discount Drug Mart.
And he's your boss?
That's correct.
Right, and we had an affidavit from him, correct?
Yes.
Saying that you had authority to sign the
Yes.
petition? Right.
Correct.
Okay. That's all I have.
Well, I don't want to beat this horse, but a corporation is governed by a board, right?
We are a privately owned, employee-owned company.
And do you have a board?
We have an internal board.
An internal board, and
Yes.
they do things like hire the chief executive, right?
Well, the chief executive, no. The chief executive for Discount Drug Mart was our founder's oldest son. He had 3 boys that run the company. One of the sons passed away a few years ago, and the second son retired recently. No, that's something that our founder and our owner can appoint whoever he wants to CEO, and that job was given to Donald Buja.
I see. So we're now at son number 3. What happens when he goes? Does the board have any voice in appointing a new?
That's a good question. You'd have to ask him. I don't know. That's not my business. So
But
I'm sure there's a succession plan in place, but
there's
I'm not privy to that.
okay, but there is an executive board or a governing board that does something.
Yeah.
Okay. And does that board approve things like buying real estate?
That is, anytime we make an acquisition, we need one person to sign off on that, and that's Donald Buja.
And he doesn't need the authority of the board?
No. He owns the company.
Right, but okay. How many annexation petitions have you signed?
First one.
That's what I thought. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Before you go, are there any questions any of the commissioners have?
You have a question, and thank you for being here today. I just want to get clear that you've indicated that the reason for annexation is because it's more economical and efficient to operate that property in the City of Brunswick. You mentioned the tax abatement
Yes.
that within Hinckley Township involved and that's part of their community reinvestment area. I understand it was 50% for
15 years.
50 years, and you were denied that.
That's correct.
If you annex into the City of Brunswick, is there a similar type of tax abatement that you as a property owner would benefit from?
Yeah, there's a 100% tax abatement for 15 years. So, it's substantial. That would, the company would realize over $600,000 more in tax savings over that 15 years. And to move that $600 to the bottom line, we'd have to do $16 million in sales. So it's substantial for a company like ours, or any company.
Now, but there is an income tax that does apply to individuals as well as corporations within City of Brunswick. Does that change the calculation or the benefit to the corporation?
I can't answer that question.
Okay, all right, thank you.
All right, any further questions based on Mr. Hambley's questions?
let me ask this. Originally, 50% was good enough, right?
Yes,
Okay. And you are aware that townships in Ohio cannot, as of the time that that original, last year, CRA was explored, 50% was the most a township could give you. Is that correct?
okay.
Well, I'm asking you. If you
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know.
So you don't know whether the law has changed that, in theory now, townships could give up to 75%, but no more than that if they don't get the approval of the school board. Is that fair to say?
I don't have that
Okay, I'm
knowledge,
sorry.
so I can't really answer that question.
Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Okay, I think that probably concludes this witness. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Do you have anyone else, any other?
I do, yes. I'd like to call Paul Barnett, please.
Raise your right hand, sir. Do you swear or affirm that your testimony will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please state your name for the record.
Paul Barnett.
And where do you work and what is your position?
I'm the service director for the City of Brunswick.
Okay. Tell me a little bit about your job duties as the services director.
We do just about everything, it seems like. We provide snow and ice services, pothole patching, reconstruction of the roadways, engineering. Building department is one of the divisions which the city engineer works for me. I happen to be a registered engineer in the state of Ohio and the state of Florida both. So sometimes I make the decisions, sometimes the city engineer makes the decisions, sometimes I overrule the city engineer in those decisions.
Very good. The resolution from the City of Brunswick had been previously admitted, so I'm going to skip that part. But has the City of Brunswick agreed to provide city services to the property subject to this annexation?
Yes, we have.
And what services will be provided or available to the property?
We provide snow and ice services, we provide roadway patching services, we provide police, fire, building department. There was conversation earlier about building department. That's a much bigger deal than most people realize. So those services we provide.
So expand on that a little bit. Tell me about how the City of Brunswick Building Department compares to a property that's in the township, which we heard Mr. Schrader say goes through the county offices.
Yeah, this particular property is kind of in a unique situation. The building department for Brunswick is a certified building department, which means whatever we say goes. And we don't have to check with the Ohio Department of Transportation or anybody else or the county. If this property were to remain in the county, the Medina County Building Department would oversee that. Anything that happens on State Route 303 in a township is governed by the Ohio Department of Transportation. So you've got not only the county building department, you've got to go through the Ohio Department of Transportation. If that property is within in the city limits of Brunswick, and that's not just Brunswick, that's any city. A state route that goes through the city is governed by the city. So we don't have to ask permission from ODOT. We don't have to jump through those hoops. Those hoops take time. You can come to our building counter, and people do on a daily basis, and get instantaneous information results. We work closely with all the developers in Brunswick, and we actually do some internal project management for those companies to facilitate their permitting process and to make sure that it goes as smoothly as possible. We look at what are the problems that are going to arise that we know from past experience. We try to solve those before they become a money problem or a delay in construction.
And again, back to the building department there that you were talking about, that is different than how it is handled in the township.
Absolutely, absolutely.
This property abuts State Route 303 and West 130th, correct?
Correct.
And who's responsible for that portion of State Route, for maintenance and snow removal of that portion of State Route 303?
A state route that is in a township is a responsibility of Ohio Department of Transportation. We have other areas that that are intermixed. If you look at State Route 42 in Brunswick, sections of that you'll be in the city, and then for 200 feet you'll be in the township, and then another 300 feet you're in the city, another 500 feet you're in the township. So it doesn't make sense in those situations to say, okay, I'm going to plow 200 feet, the township's going to come in, or the ODOT's going to come in and plow 300 feet. So we do maintenance agreements. We have maintenance agreements with ODOT. We have maintenance agreements with Medina County engineers. We have maintenance agreements with Brunswick Hills Township that will do this road, you do this road. So that goes for both maintenance and snow and ice.
And so who's responsible for maintenance and snow removal for this portion of West 130th that abuts the property? Currently,
West 130th, that belongs to the county engineer.
Okay. I'm handing you what's been marked as Exhibit P13. Can you please tell me what that document is?
This is the maintenance agreement that we have with Medina County engineers.
And what does that agreement provide?
This agreement delineates who has maintenance responsibilities of that section of roadway for both pothole patching, minor repairs, and for snow and ice.
And so pursuant to that maintenance agreement, the Medina County currently has responsibility for maintenance and snow removal of that section of West 130th.
Absolutely.
And so before this proposed annexation, Hinckley Township has no responsibility for this portion of State Route 303 or West 130th, is that correct?
No, they do not.
And after this annexation, to your knowledge, will any of that change?
No, it will not.
Okay, thank you. All right, well, let me put this. I will put Exhibit B13 in the record, and I have no further questions.
Before I'll give the City of Brunswick, I think it might have.
I have a couple questions, please. Morning.
Morning.
Are you aware as to whether or not the City of Brunswick has a full-time fire department?
Absolutely. 29 staff full-time. I believe there's 3 part-time. Part-time's hard to track because part-time, they fluctuate all the time. People are coming in, coming out. Most of them are looking for full-time jobs, or they're using it as a fill-in.
Chief Glauner,
Is
Deputy
full-time.
Chief, and Chief Glauner was the battalion chief in the City of Cleveland, was he not, before he was hired by the City of Brunswick?
Absolutely. We're very lucky to get him.
And there's a deputy chief,
Yes, there is.
and there's 6 lieutenants,
Yes, there is.
full-time, 18 firefighter, all licensed and certified as paramedics.
Full-time.
That's right. And the 3 part-time personnel would be the fire inspectors and one line firefighter paramedic as a backup.
That's correct.
And in terms of full-time fire department, do you know if Hinckley has a full-time fire department?
To my understanding, they're all part-time.
Okay. In terms of the police department, do you interface with Chief Owen? Full-time fire department, excuse me, strike that. I meant to say police department, correct?
Correct.
And again, we have overlapping shifts, 2 sergeants, 7 patrol officers,
Correct.
okay? And there's always 9 full-time police officers on duty, 3 shifts, 3 8-hour shifts in every 24-hour period, every day of the year,
Absolutely.
including holidays.
Including holidays. There's no holidays if you're in safety.
You mentioned the building department. We have our chief building inspector, Cliff.
Yes.
Cliff Galloway. He's been with the city for a long time.
About 33 years.
And we have full-time building inspectors,
Absolutely.
and we have our own planning department,
Absolutely.
okay? And it's chaired by Grant Augst, who's here today.
Yes,
He's also the economic development director. And we have our own planning commission
we do.
and our own zoning board of appeals, correct?
We do.
So in terms of the planning process, which you, I think you testified to, how does that work as compared to the township that would be under the direct jurisdiction as a township of the county building department and county planning commission compared to City of Brunswick?
The problem when you go to a county system for that type of thing as opposed to a city system is The county system, you're spread out. The bureaucracy is greater, the difficulty is greater. The larger cities tend to try to get their own building departments. Most cities can't. But if you can have a local building department for like the City of Brunswick, you can get fast, quick service, quick turnaround. The developers can have conversations with the folks. Developers come in and talk to Grant Ongst. Grant can kind of lead them down the path, because a lot of them have a lot of questions. What can we do? What can we not do? If we head down this path, what the problems are going to be. So he can kind of give them the lay of the land and the experience that he has and a local building department has to expedite things. So you may have 6 months of planning before you get to break ground on a project like this. If you're in a city like Brunswick, that's 6 months. That could be 4 months. If you go to a county situation, that could be a year. So time is money, and frustrations get very high. The more the bureaucracy, having done this job in Cleveland and in Akron, the higher the bureaucracy, the harder it is to get through the system. And I'm happy to say that Brunswick's the biggest little city I've ever worked for, and you can just come up to the window and talk to us.
By the way, you mentioned biggest little city. What was your relationship with the City of Akron?
I was the Public Works Director for the City of Akron for 18 years.
Summit County.
Then the Public Works Director for the City of Cleveland for a couple of years before I came to Brunswick.
Okay. I'm going to show you Resolution 101-09, which I did share with Al and Dan Kelvin earlier today. Can you identify, I'm not going to have you testify to it, just identify what that is if you can.
Yeah, this is Resolution 101-09. This is expanding the community reinvestment area. So this is the document that sets that up.
And it does allow, if you're able to testify, for up to 100% real estate tax abatement?
Yes, 100%.
Okay. I would like that marked at some point.
What have you marked it yet?
I have not
We'll mark
marked
that as, here, I'll give that to the court reporter.
Yes,
We
that's
mark that as B1.
okay. Separate from real estate tax abatement, which is what a CRA, Community Reinvestment Area resolution allows, are you aware of whether or not payroll taxes are levied on a number of employees in the City of Brunswick?
Yes, there is payroll tax in the City of Brunswick,
And that's what, approximately 2%?
about 2%.
2%. And are you aware whether the township can, by law in Ohio, impose a payroll tax?
Townships are not allowed to do an income tax.
Okay, so
Payroll
separate
tax.
from the real estate tax abatement in the CRA, there is a payroll tax that is levied on employees throughout the City of Brunswick.
Correct.
Thank you.
Mr. Schrader?
Well, let me pick up where we left off. On the income tax, the fact is that the store itself pays a city income tax on its profits generated by that store if it's in the city. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So there's a balancing, isn't there? There's an advantage maybe in having 100% tax abatement under a CRA, but there's a disadvantage, and we're just looking at the store now. In the store having to pay 2% on all the income generated within that store in the City of Brunswick. Fair enough?
Yeah, as an engineer, I would balance those. I would calculate them both ways, and I would also calculate what the savings in property taxes will be
And that
from
would
being
be a
in the
great
city
idea, but nobody's
as opposed to
done
the
that
township.
yet, have they?
I don't know if they have or not.
Well, the testimony from Mr. Lunt was he hadn't calculated things out.
Yeah, we don't calculate those things for businesses. Businesses come to us and say, we'd like to be in the City of Brunswick, so we say yes or no. We don't look at their financials to see if they've done any due diligence or...
We didn't mean to imply there was anything you should have done that you didn't. I just wanted to make the point that there's a balancing there. So it made it sound earlier like somehow the fact that we were going to give 50% and the city gives 75% abatement was a great deal, but then, we do at least agree there's a balancing, and there should have been some calculation there to determine where you were at.
There may be. I don't know if they've,
Okay. You gave us an exhibit, which is a maintenance agreement between Medina County and the City of Brunswick for boundary roads. The reason you have such a maintenance agreement, is it fair to say the reason you have such a maintenance agreement is that when you segment roads, you describe 200 feet in Brunswick Hills Township, then it's back to city, then maybe 100 feet in Brunswick Hills, and then back to city. Whenever you do that, that creates a road maintenance problem in the absence of a maintenance agreement, doesn't it?
well, if you didn't have a maintenance agreement, that would be very difficult to provide.
Right, it would.
Yeah.
And in part it'd be, let's get to the details. In part, it would be a difficult thing to provide because it doesn't make sense for you to pave 200 feet of a road, stop, pave 150 feet without the whole road being paved at once. Fair enough?
Well, we never, on boundary roads and these types of things, when we go to resurface a roadway and there's other communities involved, we work with them and we do it together. We just ended up doing Sleepy Hollow last year, and we worked with the township, and they actually took the lead on it and resurfaced it. We paid our share, they paid their share.
Right, so each
Sure.
pays their share.
Yeah.
And you have to calculate what that share is based on how much roads in each community.
Yeah, how much front footage?
So the maintenance agreements avoid those kind of maintenance problems.
Correct.
And is there another maintenance problem that might exist? For example, I think you used it, the plowing and ice removal. It makes no sense to do 120 feet, lift the plow, then go back, do 200 feet. We agree on that, don't we?
Correct. Yeah.
And the other problem is, it's kind of tough for that driver to know exactly where the 150 feet starts and ends, fair enough?
Well, these drivers, they know exactly where city property is and where township property is throughout the city. All of these guys do. Matter of fact, ODOT even fills up their salts at our facility on West 130th Street when they plow State Route 303.
Right,
So we have agreements with them to provide the best possible service you can provide.
right. And the other problem with segmenting roads is for the citizens. I mean, there's a deceased possum on the road. As a citizen, I need to know whether to call the county or the city. And that's kind of tough when you have part of it's county, part of it's city, part of it's county. Would you agree with me on that?
We get calls on a daily basis that if you're anywhere near the city of Brunswick, we get calls from Hinckley residents saying, hey, we got a problem here. Can you fix it? And then we have to notify them of what city they're in.
Right.
So I mean, we get that all the time. Yeah.
And that occurs too when there's a segmentation of roads.
Includes a segmentation of roads, or they're 2 blocks off of West 130th, and they still don't know, they don't realize they're in Hinckley. Or they've called Hinckley and they can't get through or something, and they call us hoping that we can do something.
Okay.
That happens quite often too.
All right, and just so we make it clear, I'm going to ask you to agree with me that this is a copy of the map that was submitted to the commissioners of this annexation.
Can you turn over?
Uh,
I'm not good at looking at maps upside down.
Yeah, it's hard to read them upside down, I understand. So on this, 303 is the road to the north, right?
Correct.
And West 130th Street is this road here.
Correct.
And
Mr. Schrader, you might want to mark that if you're going to use it. Are you going to submit that?
well, it's actually already in your file, but if you want me to, I'll mark it as Township 1. I actually got this from the file. I didn't steal it, the
No, it's
lady with me.
just for purposes of connecting his testimony to a document, it might be.
Sounds good. I appreciate it. So we marked it as T1, And what I took the liberty of doing is, as it exists now, along the center line of West 130th, half of it's already in Brunswick,
Correct.
and half of it is in the township.
Correct.
And the county maintains
They maintain that portion of it, yes.
which portion?
The portion that you're looking at.
Okay.
If you go north of 303, we maintain both sides. So we maintain the Hinckley side north of 303.
Okay.
But on south of 303, Medina County Engineers maintains that.
Okay. Now, I colored in green what would be county's maintenance of the half of the road that's in the county. And then where the city is going to wind up having jurisdiction of the road, I colored in yellow. That's 135 feet, is that?
That's accurate.
Okay. And then it goes back to the county maintenance, right?
Correct.
Okay. And that's what we call a segmentation of a road. Fair enough to say? You have
If-
to say something
If,
verbally.
if you, depends on what your definition of segmentation of the road. I don't know if that's a proper legal term or not. So, that could be, I don't know.
What would you call it?
A section of roadway?
That's now in the city as opposed to the county.
That's contiguous with the city that now is within the city.
And the maintenance agreement that you worked with the county was actually entered into back in October or November of 2022. Is that fair to say?
Yes, November 15th of 2022.
Okay, so it wouldn't apply to this particular section of West 130th, would it?
No, it does. It does. It does. These maintenance agreements are updated periodically. I believe, if memory serves me right, the last time this was updated was like 2009. And then when annexations, when things change, when new people come in, when we go, you know what, it makes more sense if we take this and you take that, by either party. In this case, Medina County came to us and said, hey, there's been a number of annexations. We wanted to look at some building department issues in the old agreement, so it's time to update it.
Okay.
So then we
So
update it. So this is
until
a
it's
fluid,
updated-
this is a fluid document as you go. And 10 years from now, that'll be updated again.
Okay. So until it's updated, though, right now, it doesn't apply to this section of West 130th we're talking here on this annexation, does it?
Until it is updated, that document forces Medina County engineers to maintain that section of roadway.
Oh, okay.
So they maintained it last year, they maintained it the year before, they have to maintain it next year.
So if this annexation is allowed, Medina County still has to maintain that 135 feet of roads, even though it's in your city?
Correct.
Okay. And when the agreement refers to West 130th, as it does 4 different times, it refers to the portion of West 130th from Laurel Road to Babcock Road / Benjamin Drive. Is that correct?
That's for there's 2 different categories. There's a maintenance section and then there's a snow and ice section. So the maintenance section does, for Medina County, they have the responsibility on the maintenance from West 130th Street to Laurel Road, well, I'm sorry, on West 130th Street, from Laurel Road to Babcock Benjamin. So they do that for the maintenance. Ditching, pothole patching, somebody hits a sign, the sign has to go back up. That's their limits. Now, when you're talking snow and ice, you have to go down a few more paragraphs. And it says, let's see, Medina County winter maintenance. On West 130th Street, they maintain from Laurel Road to Center Road. So for snow and ice. City of Brunswick does snow and ice from Center Road to Boston Road. So what we try to do, and the reason those are 2 different links, is that we will calculate every 10 to 20 years, we'll calculate how much frontage is in Medina County's responsibility, how much frontage is Brunswick's responsibility. We try to even those out somewhat. You can never get them exactly even, but you try to even them out. So then you set the limits for the maintenance on that. And then you look at snow and ice. Who's responsible for what in snow and ice? And you try to to even those limits out.
Okay. And that's what you do to take care of the problems that would be created by dividing or segmenting a road. And frankly, I think that as a practical matter, that's a good thing. But let's look at the law for a second. I'm going to ask you to read Section 6 of 70903A. It starts right here, and if you would read that out loud, please, just that.
Starting where?
Right here, number 6.
Number 6, no street or highway will be divided or segmented by the boundary line between the township and the municipal corporation as to create a road maintenance problem, or if a street or highway will be so divided or segmented, the municipal corporation has agreed as to the condition of the annexation that it will assume the maintenance of that street or highway. For the purpose of this division, street or highway has the same meaning as in section 4511.01 of the revised code.
Okay, and you read fast, just like I do, so you kind of missed a little part there, I think.
I don't think so.
Did you read the part where it said the municipal corporation has agreed as a condition of the annexation that it will maintain?
I read that.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, I must not have heard it. So,
I believe I read that.
well, it's in the record now, so we're in good shape either way. There's nothing in this agreement that says you're gonna maintain that road as a condition of annexation, is there?
That agreement says who's delineating what responsibility for what roads.
Right. And you earlier testified that if the annexation's allowed, the county's still gonna maintain it.
Absolutely.
So you haven't agreed to maintain this road, West 130th, for that 135 feet as a condition of annexation?
We have agreed to maintain an appropriate amount of roadway that allows us to be consistent with the contract.
Right.
So,
And you'd agree with me, that's not exactly what that section of the statute said. Was there anything in there saying you could maintain an appropriate part of the roadway, or does it say you have to maintain the roadway as a condition of annexation?
well, I'm not an attorney, so I'm not going to answer that because I don't know everything else that goes with that same statute. If I were to ask you a question about how to design a bridge, you wouldn't have the wherewithal to know how to do that. So if you're asking me for a legal interpretation of that, I'm an engineer, I'm not a lawyer.
Fair enough. I could put up a bridge. You may never get across it. That's all I have for this one.
All right, is there any, based on his questions, any other questions?
Yeah. Just a little bit of follow-up, sorry. I know this was going on for a while here.
Nope.
Just want to talk about that last point, that you're not an expert in statutory construction, correct?
No.
Okay, but you are an expert in road maintenance, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay. So, before the annexation, I don't have the map, the pretty map with the colors, all the yellow and green that was on the map is maintained by the county.
Right.
And pursuant to that maintenance agreement, after the annexation, all the yellow and green is going to be maintained by the county.
Correct. Here is the one difference in that, if I may. Right now, if there's a drug mart there right now and they call and they say, we've got a stormwater problem and our parking lot's flooded. If it were still in the township, we'd say, you got to call the township or the county, it's not us. If that piece of property is in the city of Brunswick, we normally within a half an hour to an hour, we dispatch a crew out there to take a look and investigate what's going on. And is it something we can unplug real quick? We have a Vector truck that's a $350,000 truck that's the world's largest vacuum that we dispatch that as needed on a daily basis. So if you're in the city, we're not just going to say, well, the maintenance agreement says that Medina County has to deal with it. We see if we can solve it. If it's something that's a long-term, bigger project that, let's say you need ditching for 800 feet, then we would call the county and say, hey, it's time to ditch. Let's go. But if it's opening a backup or slick road condition at a drive approach, even though we're not responsible for the snow and ice and the maintenance of that, we still dispatch our trucks to take care of that.
So again, another added benefit to bringing the property into the city.
Absolutely.
Okay.
That's the benefit of being in a city.
Okay. And then one other follow-up, I know you may not be an income tax expert, but I do want to correct some testimony that Mr. Schrader put on the record. As far as the City of Brunswick income tax and how it'll affect Drug Mart, now that's not on every dollar that comes through the store, right? That is on the net income of Drug Mart as it relates to that store, is that correct?
That's correct.
So it's not a huge number like Mr. Schrader made it sound. It is based on their expenses and that type of thing, correct?
Yeah, our experience has been that when you offer 100% crust, that financially outweighs the percentage of income tax by far. One of the reasons Myers moved in, because that outweighs that dramatically. And if you're looking at lower property taxes, because the way that a township, they get property taxes in order to pay for services. Well, our property taxes, we get essentially almost no property taxes. It goes to the county and to the school system. So we fund our services through income tax.
Thank you.
I do have a few follow-ups if I might.
I just have one question.
I'll let City.
I'll be, Mr. Chair, I'll defer to you. Just one real quick question. The traffic control device, red, green, yellow, that hangs at the intersection of West 130th and Center Street, 303, whose traffic control device is that?
That's the City of Brunswick's.
Thank you.
We maintain that. We coordinate those signals. We do all the maintenance on it. When that goes out, we dispatch a crew to fix it.
Nothing.
Do you have any studies that show the CRA tax abatement outweighs the income tax for your average business?
No, I have no formal studies.
Okay.
What we do have is a history of when businesses come in.
I think you've answered the question, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
I guess,
And earlier you had, I'm sorry.
I just wondered, I would just have an opportunity so you can answer the question, that's all, politely. Thank you.
I'll leave it to you, I thought you did.
Proceed.
Okay. My next question was, you said something similar about the county building department, because it's more spread out, it takes longer for turnaround and so on with the county. Have you ever done any studies that show how much time it takes the county to turn around a building permit request from a business, say, the size of what Drug Mart would be if we could build it here?
No, with Medina County, no. With the City of Akron,
No,
and the looking of the building department and going to a county in a very similar situation that we have here, yes, I have.
If we were dealing with the City of Akron here, that would be an appropriate response. But I was wondering about the county, and apparently you don't have any such studies.
No, no studies with the county.
And it's fair to say the City of New York probably takes even longer.
Oh yeah, the bigger
Okay.
the bigger it is, the worse the bureaucracy.
Okay. And the other thing, you said earlier that once this annexation is allowed, at least until we get around to amending this agreement that you just submitted for road maintenance, the county is going to have to maintain the road, correct?
Correct.
But the taxes are going to be going to the city once it's annexed, fair enough?
Fair enough.
So the city will be getting the taxes, and the county will be doing the road maintenance, right?
Yeah, and I think that that could be the case. And I think right now, I think Brunswick is responsible for maintaining more county roads than the county maintains for Brunswick. So this will bring us into closer alignment that we're both doing the exact same thing. Because we're talking 130 feet. When you're talking 45 miles that you have in your agreement, and now you're talking about a difference of 132 feet. I drop that much salt off my truck when I pull out of the yard.
And do you have any idea why the legislature wrote the statute the way it did that said that the city has to agree as a condition of annexation to maintain the road?
I have absolutely no idea.
That's all I have. Thanks.
I mean, This isn't a question, but I mean, if he's gonna testify, that's not what the statute says. And I guess I would just point that out to the commissioners, maybe to the prosecutor's office, to look at the statute, and that is quite literally not what the statute says. There's an or in that sentence that Mr. Schrader is ignoring.
We could take that up in the arguments at the end, I think, and the statute will have to speak for itself.
Is it our turn?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I have a quick question. It probably won't be as quick as it needs to be, but you alluded, I think, in your initial direct testimony that the township doesn't have any current maintenance requirements for either stretch of road.
Correct.
In that area, and that in connection with that maintenance agreement, I think you alluded to this, but wasn't entirely clear to me. Have there been other times in your term or in the term of that maintenance agreement that probably precedes your involvement in Brunswick, where other property has been annexed that would create a segmentation or some kind of similar issue?
Well, and that's exactly why every 10 to 20 years, sometimes 25 years, we reevaluate. Because as the boundaries change, it doesn't make sense. I mean, the amount of money that we're looking at for 132 feet of roadway, it might be $200 a year in difference in maintenance costs. So when you're doing a $5 million budget for your maintenance, you don't even worry about that. So you even it up as much as you can. And the goal on all of this isn't that, well, Medina's getting hosed by $50 and Brunswick's making a deal for $50. When the engineers sit down and we do this, the whole focus is what is the most optimal way to do it to provide the highest level of service.
So it's more of a macro analysis, not the presence of 100 and some odd feet of road changing hands probably wouldn't necessitate an update to the agreement.
Oh, absolutely not. We wouldn't even, we would spend more money in changing the agreement than the next 5 years of maintenance costs for that agreement. And the agreements are all set at major intersections. The least major intersection is north of 303, Benjamin. And we went back and forth. It doesn't make sense. Does it make sense to do Benjamin? And we were looking at, well, can we do Grafton Road or can we do West 130th as the terminus? But it got so much out of whack on whose responsibility what was for that we felt, okay, well, we'll do the split at Benjamin. So we would never do a split in between a block. Because you got to remember, when we're doing maintenance, these trucks don't like to turn around. Yeah. So we like to go straight shots and make a right-hand turn. So that's the goal.
That's it for me. Thanks.
Okay, are there any other follow-up questions based upon Commissioner's question? Okay, then we're, I think, done with this witness. Thank you. All right. Mr. Calvin, do you have any other witnesses or documents?
No, sir.
All right. Mr. Fisher, do you have anything else to present?
Sir, Mr. Lyons, the city has no presentation at this point.
All right. Mr. Schrader, do you have additional witnesses to present or documents?
I do, witnesses. I'd like to call Police Chief David Senter in to testify.
Okay.
And to be sworn in.
And I'll just ask that one document that you marked, we can maybe deal with it later, but let's not lose track of the number that you put on that document.
That's a good idea. Let me put it on the desk in front of the recorder now. I'm getting to the age where I'll be forgetting if I don't, so.
And that was marked as T1?
Township 1, T1.
T1, okay. And that was the only exhibit that you presented, I believe?
So far.
Okay, just so to
On
keep
the
track.
other hand, I haven't struck it yet.
No, I don't, I'm not limiting you to that one, so.
I appreciate it.
You raise your right hand, sir. Do you swear or affirm that your testimony will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Hi, Chief. Rather than do a question and answer, I'm going to, if it's okay, allow you to do what we call a narrative. tell the commissioners why, if you oppose the annexation, tell the commissioners why and the rationale for it, would you please?
I will, and good morning. I oppose this annexation on a number of reasons. First, let me give you a little overview of the Hinckley Police Department. We currently have 12 full-time officers, 2 part-time support staff, and we're filling another full-time position in the future. This allows us to schedule 2 to 3 officers per shift. There's been, from Drug Mart to the City of Brunswick has mentioned the Brunswick Police Department and their ability to provide service to Drug Mart if it's annexed into the city. I will argue that I can provide that service and even better, because we don't have the call volume that the City of Brunswick does. We don't really rely on a lot of mutual aid, and we are there in the township 24/7, 365. The other point I'd like to make is currently, if you call 911 on your cellular phone, that call goes to the Medina County Sheriff's Department to be dispatched. That's who dispatches for us. So it's a seamless process. The dispatchers ask a couple questions, determine which side of 130th the issue may be on, and we are dispatched. It's a one-step process. By allowing the annexation, it creates confusion as to what takes place in that area. Obviously, Drug Mart's going to bring increased traffic. That's going to bring increased problems, crashes, disabled vehicles, and so forth. If it's Brunswick's or it's undetermined, then we're all going to get dispatched, and we'll have to figure it out when we get there. And it just delays the process. It delays the fire department response. It delays our response, and just creates confusion. That type of confusion goes on to this day between Brunswick and Brunswick Hills. In 1985, I started my career at the Sheriff's Office. I covered Brunswick Hills Township as a deputy, and then, as it is now, there was a great deal of confusion from time to time as to whose jurisdiction was what. And, you know, that creates a problem, not only for us, but for the citizens. There was questions about the police department when this issue with Drug Mart buying the property. At no point in time did anybody from Drug Mart contact me or my police department about our ability to provide service to them. We can do that. It's not a problem. It wasn't a problem prior to the abatement issue, and that changed things. So it's not a problem. We can do that. I'm sure the fire department will tell you the same thing. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the map that I was shown about the annexation in that intersection, the eastern side of that intersection will remain the responsibility of the Hinckley Police Department, with the exception of 135 feet of a driveway apron off of 130th. If that annexation goes through, Brunswick, as has already been said, reaps the tax benefits and the income from that property, but I am still responsible to maintain law enforcement services for the eastern side of that intersection. That's not fair. We've got to maintain that. It's not fair to the citizens of Hinckley, and it's just, it will create issues for everyone. So that's really what I have at this point.
Chief, the standard the commissioners have to look at on general good is whether on balance, the benefits of an annexation outweigh the detriments, not only to the area to be annexed, but also the unincorporated area within a half a mile. So I want you to relate what you just said to that unincorporated area within half a mile. The citizens there are going to be paying for police protection and not getting reimbursed by way of the taxes. Is that fair to say?
That would be fair to say, yes.
Okay. What other disadvantages are there from a police perspective to the folks within a half a mile of the unincorporated area of the township?
Well, a lot of it will deal with the intersection itself. And you know, the traffic concerns that that brings. So that's really about it.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have for this witness.
Mr. Calvin, do you have any questions?
Yeah, just a quick question. Thank you, Chief, for your testimony. So you heard earlier Discount Drug Mart say they will probably still build this store if the property stays in the township, right? So if the property stays in the township, your office will be required to provide services to the store, correct?
That's correct.
Increased call volume, crime that is coming with it apparently, as you testified. So the fact that we're moving it to the city and pushing that to Brunswick, isn't that a benefit to the rest of the township? The neighbors are gonna have faster call responses, the police are gonna give them more attention, and this problem that you've stated is really gonna be the city's problem and actually going to benefit the township.
Well, depending on the call volume to the store itself, that would be accurate, because that will be their responsibility unless they're busy and they ask us to mutual aid to go handle it. But the roadway still remains mine. So that's a problem.
And explain a little bit more about the roadway to me.
Well, as I understand the annexation, and correct me if I'm wrong, the only section of West 130th Street that will be Brunswick's jurisdiction will be that 135-foot wide bridge from the west side of the road to the east side of the road. The rest of that property that borders State Route 303 and West 130th Street will remain my responsibility.
Yeah, I don't know where that's coming from, but I'm not aware of any, I mean, this entire property will become the city's responsibility.
So you're saying that the roadway will be their responsibility as well?
Not for maintenance and everything like that, and you know, you would have to talk to the prosecutor's office or your legal counsel about that, but I'm not sure where, you know, your officers, their jurisdiction will stop, but
Okay, so
there's no part of this property that after the annexation will remain in the township, even in the roadway.
okay, that's not my understanding.
And then you talked about the confusion, the dispatchers being confused about where to send it. Can you give me some examples of that? Has that happened in other parts of the township, and has that ever led to death, a criminal getting away, any of that? Do you have
Well,
any
currently it
substantive-
hasn't happened anywhere in our township because we do not have, we have maintained our integrity of our township borders. We have not been annexed at any point in time by a municipality. So no, inside our township, no. But if Brunswick Hills has experienced that, where there's a potential delay in, you know, who's gonna respond, whose, you know, jurisdiction is it, what section of road is it? So it does happen. And that's something that we have to look forward, you know, we have to look at for the future. Because let's face it, if this annexation goes through, this is just the beginning. This won't be the only piece of land that's gonna go to Brunswick. And somewhere down the road, we're gonna see continued confusion with this, because it's going to happen. Once that door opens, it's never gonna close again. You know it and I know it.
So, I guess going back to the confusion here, to your knowledge, has your office ever received a dispatch call that should have gone to Brunswick, or should have gone to Granger, or should have gone to Richfield, or anything like that? Has your office ever received one of those confusion calls?
We have.
Okay, so even before this annexation, there were confusion issues with the dispatchers?
At times, yes.
Okay, thank you. No more questions.
Mr. Fisher?
Mr. Lyons. Chief. Hi, my name is Ken Fisher, Law Director, City of Brunswick. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you,
Of
sir.
course, you know Chief Olin.
I do.
And you
Well,
know, I still call him Chief DeForest, but he was, he probably worked in the Sheriff's Department. He's our city
Yeah.
manager. And we, you know, again, I know this is an adversarial proceeding, but all that aside, there is a certain amount of cooperation, and a large amount of cooperation that exists between the City of Brunswick and the Township of Hinckley. Wouldn't you not agree?
I would agree with that.
Yeah, and you have good relations with Chief Olin, with Carl DeForest, and I'll just speak from the police perspective. And I know they respect you. So again, I just want to make that known so there's no misunderstandings. How many full-time police officers do you employ in Hinckley Township?
We currently have 12.
Okay, and you're aware that City of Brunswick has 40 full-time police officers on staff?
Okay.
It's
I'm not sure what the exact number is, but
you don't disagree with it.
I do not disagree with you.
Thank you,
no.
Chief. And then in terms of staffing, you say you have 2 to 3. Do you have 10-hour shifts?
We have 12-hour shifts.
12-hour shifts. Okay. And you have 2 to 3 police officers on each shift.
That's correct.
And you're aware that, if you know, and I'll tell you how it works in Brunswick, and I think you do have a lot of experience, working cooperatively within your department and the City of Brunswick's department. The day shift, these are 10-hour shifts, 2 sergeants, 7 patrol officers. The afternoon shift, 2 sergeants, 9 patrol officers, and there's a night shift with 2 sergeants and 6 patrol officers, all full-time officers. Correct?
Okay.
Just like you have a good department with your shift, you would agree, I would think.
I don't disagree with you.
Okay, that's my point. Thank you for that. And other than that, I don't think that I really have any other questions. Thank you, Chief.
Chief, do you see any benefit to that drug mart property if the annexation is allowed as to police protection?
A benefit to them?
To them?
No, I don't. It'd be no different than us providing that service to them.
Okay. And that's because you have a lower volume of calls, you're not as big as Brunswick and so on?
Correct.
And I want to get my mind around the dispatch issue. There's a call for police service, say in that 135-foot area or close to it. How's that work? The call goes in, it's to the county dispatch, right?
Correct. If it's a cellular 911.
Okay.
Landline 911s are dedicated to the jurisdiction that they're in.
And nowadays, most calls are cellular, are they not?
Yes.
And so once that cellular call comes in, it goes to county dispatch.
Correct.
If it's in Hinckley Township, they dispatch you.
Correct.
And if it's in Brunswick, what happens?
They transfer the call to the Brunswick Dispatch Center.
So it goes to another dispatch center. Then what happens?
I would make the assumption they do the same thing ours does. They ask questions as to what is taking place, and then the appropriate resources are dispatched.
So there could be a time delay, or would be a time delay, because now you got 2 different dispatch centers asking questions to establish where it is. And then when county finds out it's actually Brunswick, they got to refer it to Brunswick Dispatch Center, which asks very similar questions.
Correct.
And then they dispatch a policeman.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Chief, for being here. As you know, I live nearby, use 130th all the time, and obviously see a high police presence of Brunswick City Police all the time on 130th to keep the traffic down. But I notice over the years accidents right there in the corner on numerous occasions where there's actually response from both entities. How do you sort that out now?
If both departments respond, we look at the accident, we do an investigation and determine whose jurisdiction is responsible for it.
Well, that's how you proceed after the response. At this point, it's whoever the call comes into, and then it's sorted out as to, based on the 911 call, as to the location and who should respond.
Correct. And there are times the call will come to us, or it'll go to Brunswick, and it will respond.
Right.
And then we'll determine, well, this is Brunswick's crash, and then we call Brunswick to come respond.
So the dispatcher, in talking to the individual that's calling, makes that determination based upon the information, address, and so forth. If it's in the center, then basically they choose who can respond quicker, that they believe.
They ask a number of questions to determine jurisdiction on those boundaries to the best of the ability and the information that they can gather, and then the appropriate response is made. So if we get there, let's just say they call, it falls to us, and we get there and we determine it's Brunswick's, then we have Brunswick respond to handle it.
So as I understand, and I'm not seeing the layout, but I presume there would be like 2 entrances to Discount Drug Mart, one on 303 and then one on 130th. Would that correct? I know that's off camera. So that if there's somebody calls about an accident in one of those aprons, they're saying they're calling from Discount Drug Mart. The dispatcher would have to take a look and see, is that in the city of Brunswick or that's in Hinckley? And at this point, the dispatcher would make the decision.
Correct.
Okay, and you're contending that if it's on the 303 portion of the entrance, it would be your jurisdiction, and you believe that the confusion would be that if it's on the 130th, then that would be City of Brunswick.
That's correct.
And as I understand, the testimony is that basically City of Brunswick is saying, no, it'd be City of Brunswick regardless.
Yes,
Okay, but at this point, it would have to be a dispatcher based upon the address.
correct.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
All right, I don't think there's anything further for this witness, so thank you, sir.
Thank you. And since we mentioned Brunswick Hills, I'd like Police Chief Tim Sopkovic.
Raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that your testimony will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Would you state your name and address?
Tim Sopkovich, Brunswick Hills Police Chief.
Thanks for correcting how I pronounce it.
That's okay.
I apologize. And how long have you been a police chief?
I've been a police chief going on 10 years. I've been with Brunswick Hills Township going on 12 years. Prior to that, I was with Cuyahoga County Sheriff's Office and 6 years overseas.
With which branch?
I was with a private company for the Department of State,
Oh, okay. Oh,
Personal
good.
Protection.
Okay, and you're currently the chief there at Brunswick Hills Township.
Yes, I am.
You heard the Hinckley chief discuss what happens when there's confusion and these odd boundaries, chopped up boundaries. Now, he's never faced them as a Hinckley police chief because Hinckley's a perfect square. Were his concerns legitimate?
I think his concerns are legitimate, and I know Chief Sentner knows that area. Prior to him becoming chief of Hinckley, he was captain at Medina County Sheriff's Office, so on a regular basis I've worked with him over the past years in Brunswick Hills Township. Brunswick Hills Township is kind of unique because it is that very chopped up Brunswick City, Brunswick Hills area where, again, 200 feet, it's Brunswick Hills, and the next 300 is the city. So I know a lot of the commissioners are familiar also with that area. Unique because, you know, in the 60s, they annexed away from the city and became the township. So it's a very young township. My issues that I have is regardless of what happens, life is going to be first. So all of our responding officers with the City of Brunswick, with the Medina County Sheriff's Office, with Brunswick Hills Township, both police and fire, we don't care if we get a call out in that area. We're going to get there and we're going to save somebody. So I think all law enforcement, Medina County, work very well. Same with the fire. But what it does, it creates problems. It creates confusion with the residents, with the homeowners, the business owners. Who's their police department? And there's been a lot of annexation from the city to Brunswick Hills Township. To where it took us a long time for training and preparation to get the officers ready and know their jurisdictional boundaries just because of the layout and how much is chopped up and separated there. Again, we make sure we get there, we handle that life-threatening situation, and we get them, you know, proper care and everything, and then we figure it out after the fact through investigations. If it's a car accident, where the first initial accident occurred. Was it in a boundary line on a road 100 feet, 200 feet, where the first initial contact, and whose jurisdiction was that? Was that Brunswick Hills or the city? And then that's who takes the report. A lot of these crimes, again, it has to be jurisdictional. So if it is a theft or robbery or something like that, we have to articulate where that actual crime did commit. And if it was on Brunswick City jurisdiction, then they would have to come in and we'd work with them and give them, you know, what information if we started an investigation and pass it off. As far as Chief Sentner, as far as the confusion with 911, I am very familiar with that. Brunswick City dispatches under their own dispatch center. Majority of the 911 calls, it is sent to the Medina County Sheriff's Office. They field the initial 911 call, and these are the cellular calls that are not land-based 911 calls. From there, they'll determine the area, and then it'll get dispatched to Brunswick Hills. So have I seen some deviations in time on that? Yes, there are some things when you played an old telephone game, hello, can I help you, and pass on. The stories might get changed a little bit or altered. But as long as we have a location with Brunswick City or myself, we'll get there. But as far as, having a direct line of communication, I wish I had something like that in my dispatch center, so that the 911 calls would go directly to my dispatch center and then out to the officer. So I do believe there is a great advantage to that.
So, you do your best to solve the problems created by this kind of thing, but the fact is there are problems created by this segmentation.
There are problems. Again, we look for helping people as best we can. So there's a lot of instances that it may be in the Brunswick jurisdiction, a traffic accident at that intersection, and maybe the Brunswick officers are tied up. My officers will go ahead and move forward and take care of that situation. Again, opening up the roadway, not only for my residents or businesses in the township, but also the city, so trying to work with them. But I think over the years, law enforcement in Brunswick area, Brunswick Hills area, we're both officers on both sides are forced to learn the jurisdictional boundaries. They know it, but it does create some confusion.
Okay. And one of the problems is a practical matter. If you issue a citation out of your jurisdiction, that's liable to be thrown out of court, isn't it?
Well, there are jurisdictional boundaries, correct. We have to issue the citations when, if it's a traffic misdemeanor offense, the officer, you have to witness it. On a lot of our roads, like Pearl Road or Sleepy Hollow, some of those roads, we do have joint jurisdictional boundaries on those roads that separated north and south of both jurisdictions. So all of our minor misdemeanor traffic violations go through Medina City Municipal Court, and as far as the Brunswick City, they would probably take those through the mayor's court.
And when you have to train a patrolman extra in terms of where the boundaries are, because they're all segmented, that's a detriment to the people in the unincorporated area of the township, isn't it? You're not getting a policeman out able to do the job as quickly as otherwise.
It is very difficult because, again, we have some township property right in the middle of Center Road in the city of the heart of Brunswick. So there are a lot of these areas, and again, the training process, but once officers understand and know what addresses are, as we get past that.
Did you have anything else you wanted to? Okay, then I'm done with this witness. Thank you.
Any questions?
Yeah, just a couple follow-ups.
Yeah.
Thanks, Chief. I wish I had some visual aids for this, for a map of Brunswick Hills, but I think you described it as unique, right?
Very unique.
Very choppy is what you said. And I don't remember if it was you or Mr. Schrader that said that Hinckley is currently just a big square, roughly.
Yes,
and this is going to be the one notch out of that square. We're talking about one annexation of one property, so it's going to be a square minus one property.
Okay. Yeah, I'm familiar with Hinckley's area, right?
So even after the annexation, substantially less choppy than Brunswick Hills.
Yeah, Brunswick Hills is.
And actually, most of the annexation hearings that have been heard by the commissioners have been from Brunswick Hills to the city of Brunswick. And so I'm just wondering if either you or anyone from your office regularly appears at those hearings to oppose annexation from the township to the city based on the confusion and choppiness that you
I've never been to an annexation hearing.
Okay. Thank you. No further questions.
Hey, Chief.
Hey.
My name's Ken Fisher. I represent City of Brunswick. Nice to meet you. So again, you work closely with the City of Brunswick Police Department and our chief.
Correct.
Yeah. And the relationships, and I understand there's been lots of annexation hearings over the 20 years I've been law director, but to the best of my knowledge, I don't recall you or your predecessor ever testifying at an annexation hearing between the City of Brunswick and Brunswick Hills Township. Would that be
That
accurate?
is correct. This is my first time.
Yeah, I got you. And so you're aware that, well, I guess that's a Hinckley question more or less. On April 11th, there was a really bad fire. Do you remember that day? April 3rd, I'm sorry to say. April 3rd, there was a bad fire in the township.
Yeah.
And you're aware that the first person there was, the fire was in the township, was Chief Glauner?
That's incorrect. It was Chief from North Royalton was first chief that was on scene.
And then Chief Bonner maybe right after?
Actually, my police officers were there, and then Chief Gallner.
Okay, but
Yeah.
he was, okay, I don't.
Again,
who was
I
there
think
first, but the City of Brunswick responded quickly, wouldn't you agree, to this fire? And my understanding is that the house was saved, even though the resident, one of the residents was burned pretty badly.
Yeah, there was a friend who was burned pretty severely, and I think Hinckley was the first ambulance that was on scene, and they did the transport of that individual.
Okay. All right. I don't think I really have anything further. I understand that you're opposed to this annexation, but it appears that way anyways. But, I'll just leave that alone. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for being here. Just to make it clear, I know, especially with the history of Brunswick Hills and Brunswick City, but I think even more importantly, as you go out within entire Medina County, our safety forces, both police and fire, have in their general budgets do include mutual aid and sharing of costs and services, because first priority is public safety. And when they go to their taxing authority, their budgeting authority, and so forth, those mutual aid, that understanding that you're going to have shared services and shared costs, because you have those circumstances where they actually do, you all do help one another to provide those kind of services to the public. Is that correct?
Yeah, we have mutual great agreements with the city, with the county, to assist each other. I don't know, on the financial side of reimbursements, I don't know that I don't know.
Well, you don't get involved with the, well, you don't
yeah.
you don't do chargebacks based
Yeah.
upon your time there, and that's the nature of safety forces.
Absolutely.
And I think that is it's a mutual benefit to the communities, especially those that are neighbors to one another and have a lot of interaction. They go to the same churches, they go to the same schools, and so forth. So, but by and large, the elected officials that are the authorities that do, by jurisdiction, collect taxes and do budgets, make sure that there are resources in the communities for those safety forces. And they go to, of course, their constituents for the support they need. But understanding that in that overall budget, there is within your budget the anticipation you're going to be doing mutual aid, as well as when you need services of other people coming to your help. Correct?
I don't so much, I don't budget for it.
Well, I mean,
I
it's
do have
assumed
mutual great agreements.
that you've got the agreement,
Yes.
but just,
But we're all, you're correct with all Medina.
Right. Okay.
Law enforcement, we're all out to help each other, and
exactly right. Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions?
If there were never an annexation at all in Medina County, you'd still have mutual aid, wouldn't you?
yes.
Okay. So the point that you're trying to make, if I heard it right, is you just don't want it made worse by all these segmentation of boundary lines. Is that fair to say?
Well, I could just testify that in Brunswick Hills, it is very choppy, it is very difficult for officers to provide a service when we're doing our normal patrol. We're gonna take care of our citizens, our businesses, but having those chopped up areas, it's, I mean, pretty much Brunswick Hills, we have 12.5 or 12.1 square miles that we're responsible for, but when you incorporate all the other little areas for us to get to the east side of the town, to the west side or north, the south, we have 25 square miles that we're responsible because we have to drive through or go through that jurisdictional boundary. So it just makes it a little bit harder for us, being a smaller community with a smaller tax base, but still responsible for a larger, that same larger area, but it's just spread out.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have. For that witness.
I got you. Thank you.
Okay, I'd like to call the fire chief.
You swear or affirm that your testimony will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Hi, Chief. State your
Hi,
name.
Justin Grossma, Fire Chief, Hinckley Township Fire Department.
Great. Keep going. I think
Um,
you answer your question.
Our department is part-time. We do not have full-time firefighter employees. Our members are all part-time employees. In December, we went and moved to a third-man staffing, so we have 3 members around the clock. 21 of our members are paramedics, and we have 13 that are EMTs. 8 of them are currently in medic school, and we will be swearing in another 2 members next week, bringing our roster up to 36 members for our fire department. We do have mutual aid agreements, like the police department said. This year, we've given Brunswick City assistance 9 times. That fire that was brought up, I don't remember which one said it. We did provide ALS service to that and transport them to the burn center. We've asked them for one assistance this year with the traffic control due to the storms that we recently had. Last year, we provided about 29 calls of service to their community, and we received about 9 calls of service to them last year. One of my concerns is the confusion as well of when somebody calls 911, where is the call originated from? If they're calling, if it is a motor vehicle accident, it's on 303, and they say we're in front of Drug Mart, we're next to Drug Mart, is the call going to go to Brunswick or is it going to go to us? Just because of how I at least understood the mapping. The other concern I have is we talked about the senior housing that's going up right there and the walking over. That if one of our residents walks over and has a medical emergency on that property, they're on Brunswick City side of the property, and they will be billed in full. Where our residents, when we arrive to a scene and care for one of our residents, we soft bill our residents, where whatever their insurance covers is all we look. We don't send them to collections. We don't look and send invoices or anything like that. So that is one concern I have for our residents of the community.
All right, and you had, this kind of can get boring, but I wanted to make sure the commissioners were aware of your equipment.
We have two fire engines, one tanker for water delivery, since we do have a large area of our population that does not have city water, so we do have to truck water in. We have 2 ambulances that are stocked ALS, and we do have 2 pickup trucks, 1 command car, and 1 utility with a plow on it, and then we do have a UTV for wilderness type rescue, where we can go out into the farm fields or the metro parks and rescue injured people out there.
Okay, and then on mutual aid, you had indicated, and I wanted to have you please outline to the commissioners how much they gave you and how much you gave them.
You disappeared.
I'm
Hold on, I
sorry.
think it's right here.
These things are great when they work. There we go.
As I said, this year, we gave them 9 mutual aid calls, and we received it once. Last year, we gave 9, we received 9 times from them, 29 times. We went to Brunswick City 29 times, and we received it 9 times. The year before, in 2021, we received help from them 20 times. It was our busiest year on record, and then we gave them calls, help service for 34 times. And I know they do use other mutual aid departments as well. They are a very busy department, and I will continue giving them, the help. Our mutual aid agreement, we have to work together in the community.
Okay. And does this, will there be any benefit as to fire and EMS services to the Drug Mart area if it's annexed?
For benefit for Brunswick City to them? Or, I'm sorry, I don't understand what you're asking.
Well, as to fire services, can Brunswick City somehow do it better than you?
No, I think we're both equally trained. Both of us would be responding, but I believe that with our lower call volume, we may be able to arrive quicker than them.
Okay, so there'd be no advantages to fire and EMS to the area to be annexed. How would this annexation affect the unincorporated area within half a mile?
I think there could be confusion on the location of the calls.
Okay. And then we've talked a little bit about taxes. Your fire department is funded by property taxes.
That is correct.
Right? And I believe we'll have the zoning inspector testify in a second, but that area was considered the growth area for Hinckley.
My understanding.
So that was going to be your future income, the property tax?
Potentially, yes.
Okay. And that'll be gone, at least as to the Drug Mart area, if this annexation is allowed?
That could be, yes.
And that would be a negative on the unincorporated area within half a mile?
Yes.
Okay, that's all I have.
Any further questions?
Yeah, we have a few.
Well, we'll let Mr.
Did you want to go first?
Mr.
Yeah,
Kelly.
I gotta go. I'm sorry. So I want to go back to this Brunswick Hills fire. So
Sure.
you had mentioned that your office, even though this fire was in Brunswick Hills and there might have been confusion between the city and the township, your office responded and was
That our
dispatched.
department was, yes.
Okay. Do you consider that a waste of taxpayer dollars or just part of the job?
No, there was confusion because they actually called our station on their dispatch center, actually called our station on the landline. V and call it Medina County to mutuate out. So there was a lot of confusion on what was being requested initially.
So even before this annexation, there's confusion as it relates to your department with.
On that borderline, yes.
Yeah, okay. Does your department have a ladder truck?
No, we do not.
Okay. And are you familiar with Discount Drug Mart and what their buildings generally look like and their size?
My understanding, yeah, it's a one-story building. Typically, from what I've visited, it's a one-story building.
About 30,000 square feet?
Sure.
Okay. So if there was a major fire at one of the Discount Drug Mart stores of roughly that size, would a ladder truck be at all beneficial to?
Yes,
fighting
multiple
that fire?
ladder trucks would be beneficial.
Okay.
Their ladder truck is out of service right now. I called them this weekend for one, and they do not have one available.
Okay, but generally they do?
They generally, yes, they do. And I do have, if that was in our community, as the fire escalated, we would be having additional ladder trucks from the cities around to respond.
Okay. And then going back to what you were looking at on Mr. Schrader's iPad there, so even before this annexation, you helped the City of Brunswick more than they helped you, is that
Yes.
correct? Okay.
Yes.
And I think that you testified before that if this property were annexed and there was a fire or other emergency, it's likely that both departments would respond.
Yes.
And if this annexation fails and the property stays in the township, is it also likely that
Yes,
both
we would
respond?
both be responding, yes, sir.
Okay, no further questions. Thank you.
Hello, Chief.
Hello, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing fine, thank you.
That's good.
Now, you work cooperatively with Brunswick,
Yes.
Chief Greg Launer.
Yes, Greg's a great guy.
Great guy and highly
Yep.
competent. Thank you for that. We appreciate it. And I'm sure he thinks the same about you. So, again, please understand that.
Sure, absolutely.
You know, in terms of the aerial, you're right. It's last night's council meeting, which I attended as law director on an emergency basis. There was a resolution passed authorizing repairs, emergency repairs, $49,000 to the aerial to make sure that it's working completely properly.
Mhm.
You aware of that?
Yeah, I didn't know the pricing, no, but Greg did reach out and say that the ladder was gonna be out for a few weeks.
It'll be 2 to 3 weeks, and we
Okay.
moved on it quickly as soon
Good.
as it was discovered as part of routine maintenance that the aerial was in need of repair. And again, there aren't a lot of aerial trucks in the county, correct?
In the county, yes.
In the county, right. I understand that North Royalton has one in some of the surrounding communities.
Strongsville,
Obviously,
yeah.
Strongsville, not that we want to talk about Strongsville, but maybe no, but another subject. All right, now in terms of your department, I think you testified it is a part-time department.
We are part-time, yes, sir.
And I understand. And you do have a beautiful fire station.
Oh, thank
I
you.
drive by it on 94.
Thank you, yeah, it's only 6 years old.
And hopefully, if the voters approve it, on May 2nd, we will have a brand-new fire station on Hancock. I'm sure you're probably aware of that.
I am very well, there's a sign in my yard.
That's appreciated too, very much so. Now, in terms of your staffing, I believe that you testified you have 3 part-time firefighters that are on duty at all times?
Around the clock, yeah.
Okay, and are they all paramedics?
One is always guaranteed a paramedic, we always have one. That day of the fire, we had 3 paramedics on duty, but no, I cannot guarantee all 3 members are paramedic.
Okay, and Hinckley is, I mean, outside of I understand the West 130th corridor is obviously what we're talking about today, but with the exception of that, there's not a lot of commercial activity or businesses in Hinckley. It's a very beautiful, basically
Very rural
residential
setting, yes,
community.
the
Very rural.
businesses end right around, just east of where we're talking about in West 130th, off West 130th.
You made a remark, which I just, I believe you can't let pass, and that is that this could be the beginning, if this is granted, West 130th Street annexations. There's nothing else pending other than this annexation.
I do not know if there's
I've been
anything
law
else.
director 20 years. The first time I've been involved with any annexation between Hinckley Township and the city.
Sure, that I know, yes.
Right, okay, thank you. And do you know what a JED is, a Joint Economic Development District?
No, I know of it, but I do not know the details on it.
You don't know, you're not aware that there's been discussions ongoing for years between my client, the City of Brunswick, and the various trustees over a JED?
No, I was not aware of that.
Okay. And real quickly, in terms of staffing, in the City of Brunswick, again, there's 6 lieutenants, 18 firefighter paramedics, 3 part-time personnel, and then we have 2 fire inspectors and a firefighter,
Just for the
one-line
record, I guess I have
firefighter
to
paramedic.
To testifying by way of a question, But that said, I've let a lot go, so
Well,
I
do
just
too.
wanted to, I understand.
Are you aware that the staffing in the city of?
I'm very aware of the
Right,
staffing, yep.
That was my question. I was gonna ask a question rather than, I'm not testifying, I'm not under oath. And I do appreciate that, and I'll move on. And again, are you aware that the Division of Fire in Brunswick works with 3 24-hour shifts, always consisting of 2 lieutenants and 6 firefighter paramedics?
Yes.
And that at all times in the city of Brunswick, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 364 days a year. There are always 6 firefighter paramedics on duty.
On duty, handling the calls in the city, yes.
Thanks, I don't turn any further.
All right, thank you very much.
All right, any other questions? No?
No.
Commissioners? No. Okay,
Thank you very much.
The zoning inspector is next, and then I'm gonna ask you to think about maybe doing here, I can proceed.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the last part. You said zoning inspector's next, and then you're gonna...
And then I want you to, I was asking that perhaps the commissioners think about a short break at least. At that point, I think that might be a logical place for a recess.
Do you,
No, I have no objection, that's up to the...
Witnesses are we talking about?
yeah, how many more witnesses do you anticipate?
That's one reason for the break. I've got 3 trustees. I'm not sure all of them want to testify. So I thought, given how the hearing's gone, we'll have a ability to figure out how we're going to handle that.
Okay, well, do you want to call the zoning inspector now?
I do, thank you.
And then we'll address that after the...
Thanks.
Well, let me give you this back.
Thank you, sir.
Sir, do you swear or affirm that your testimony will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Tom Wilson, I'm a current zoning inspector at Hinckley Township, and I've had that job for the last 7 years. I'd like to clear up a couple of things that were said. Vice President of Real Estate, Mr. Tomlin, said that he had trouble with our zoning department and our boards getting an okay, and he thought Brunswick might handle it quicker. Actually, they came to us in December of 21, and our code reads that we allow a 12,000 square foot building as a permitted use, and anything over that has to be a conditional use. In this case, it was a 25,000 square foot building, and our Board of Zoning Appeals approved that. The other issue was when we have a drive-through in our community, we like to have that as a conditional use to make sure it doesn't impose on neighbors and so forth. And that was approved without a problem. I was sorry to hear them complain, Brunswick to complain about Medina County Building Department. We've never had a problem with them. A year ago, we built 34 new homes, and last year we built 50 new homes. And all of the contractors I deal with have nothing to say but good things about Medina County Building Department. How it works, someone comes to Hinckley Township and asks for a zoning permit, and it's my job and the board's job to make sure that property fits for the type of building, meets all the setbacks, etc. And that usually takes our department 2 to 3 days. We always turn it around within the week, so we don't drag our feet on that. And then that zoning permit goes to Medina County Zoning Department, and they handle the building part of the building. And again, we have no complaints coming to our office about Medina County. They're pretty quick. As far as Drug Mart, our community and myself, we certainly welcome them. They're a wonderful company. but we are very sorry to have them want to annex to Brunswick simply because they feel their building department is better, or the county can't handle it or something. I mean, and there was a comment that Hinckley doesn't have anything but residential. Well, 85% of our community is residential, but we have a very nice industrial park and very good businesses in Hinckley Township, and we handle them nicely, I hope. So I do oppose this annexation, and the main reason I oppose it is in 1982 there was a plan drawn up by the township residents and the trustees at that time for growth, and in 2015 that became our comprehensive plan, and our comprehensive plan talks about keeping the residential part of Hinckley rural, but adding services such as Drug Mart, and we're very happy to have them come into our business district at the corner of 303 and West 130th. I think Hinckley will benefit from having Drug Mart there, and we're very sorry that Drug Mart feels they need to make this annexation for whatever dollars. I heard 600,000, but they actually bought that property under the old assumption that they would be getting, I mean, it is what it is. So that's a business decision by Drug Mart, but they're more than welcome, and we have no problem zoning wise.
So you do have a comprehensive plan.
We have a comprehensive plan.
The comprehensive plan indicates that the west 130th corridor is to be your growth area, your commercial or...
Well, it's a business area, yes, that's right.
Okay, so Drug Mart fit.
Right.
Drug Mart got the variances they needed for zoning.
Quickly.
Okay. And what fell apart was they didn't get a 50% tax abatement.
That's my understanding, yes.
And for that reason, they want to change the boundary lines between the city and the township.
That's my understanding.
My colleague from Brunswick's mentioned JEDs a couple of times. Has there been any discussion about a JED
Well, I
in
think
general, not just...
I think our trustees would be better to answer that. Well, I'm not sure.
Okay. All right, fair enough. And do you see any detriment to the township within a half-mile, unincorporated area of the township within a half a mile of this proposed annexation as a result of the annexation?
Well, our concern, of course, is our industrial areas is close by on both sides of Center Road, and as you say, we now have a beautiful 219 senior housing by Pride One. What's next? We don't want anything else annexed, and we don't want this annexed. We have a beautiful township that's full of beautiful homes, and it's maintained its rural atmosphere, and that's what people want. And this Drug Mart's certainly a great addition, but it's an addition to Hinckley Township, not Brunswick.
Right. And so far, you're a perfect square, is that correct?
That's correct.
And from a planning standpoint, that's kind of neat to have a community that's a perfect square with no...
Absolutely.
Okay, that's all I have for the students. Thank you.
Thank you. Just a few questions. How long have you been employed as a zoning inspector?
7 years.
7 years, okay. Are you full-time?
No, I'm part-time.
Part-time. And how many additional staff do you have in your office?
Just myself.
Just yourself, part-time, okay. In your tenure, in your 7-year tenure, How many commercial buildings of this size that's been proposed, the 25,000, I think you said, has your office handled?
I think we've handled, I know First School Supply came in and built a 40,000 square foot building. I think we've done 2 or 3. I'd have to look.
And so, again, just kind of trying to point out what your office does and what they don't do. So your office handles the zoning piece of planning and zoning and building, and then for everything else, you ship them to the county to handle. So
Well,
2 stops.
I wouldn't say ship them.
Well, send them, ship them, they have to go to the county.
We refer them.
Refer them.
And the county does a great job, by the way.
And no offense to Denise here.
Well, Denise and I work together, and I gotta tell you, I raised the hair on my arms when everybody was bad-mouthing the Medina County Building Department.
Hey,
They
she's
are
a
very
friend,
good.
Absolutely, absolutely. But there are 2 stops in the process for
Right.
somebody that's developing the township, as opposed to the city, which has 1 stop. Correct? Okay. And your concern is that this is a slippery slope, this is the first property, and then hundreds of others are gonna annex into the city, is that accurate?
I would say 2 or 3, maybe not hundreds.
Okay. Are you aware of any other pending annexation?
Absolutely
petitions?
not.
Okay. Thank you, no further questions.
Mr. Fisher?
Quickly, thank you, Mr. It's to me, Mr. Wilson. In terms of this property that's the subject of the petition, the property, the proposed annexation from the township into the city, have there been other applications on this particular site for other uses?
For other uses,
Yes.
yes. There was a company out of Brunswick that, transportation company. I
You
can't
didn't
think.
want that, did you?
Well, we approved it.
Oh, you did?
And
Okay.
you know why they didn't go away?
I
Because you
don't.
gave them a tax break.
Is that why?
Sure.
Any other applications other than a trucking company?
Not at this time.
During the 7 years that you've been there?
No.
Okay, and again, I think you said 1. You do have an assistant though?
No,
Seated in
no.
front?
Oh, I'm sorry, I do now have an assistant,
Right.
because we've had so many new homes built. So yes, I have 1 assistant, I
And
apologize
she's,
for
I
that.
think she was seated in front of me, or no? Is that her?
What's that?
Is that the assistant that's seated in front of me?
No, my assistant is at work.
Oh, okay, so, but you are really a one-man, that's good to know. You're really a one-man department, correct? One-person department, other than your assistant?
2.
Okay, so you're correct then, there's 2 of you. Okay, and you work with have you worked with the Brunswick Building Department at any point in time, or?
No.
Probably not, no. Okay, in terms of all of the various applications that have been made from the Township of Hinckley to the county, the county building department, they do all the inspections, and you have no inspectors.
Oh, yes, we have 2 inspections. We are looking at setbacks, making sure nobody's encroaching on neighbors. So we go out and have a first stake inspection, and that's an important one because if there's a mistake, we can move stakes.
Boundaries, sure.
And then we have a second inspection when the footer goes in, or if it's a pole building, and we confirm that they're in the right position. So we have 2 inspections.
What about during the inspection itself, electrical,
That's
plumbing?
all Medina County.
That's the county, correct? And in terms of the county, that's the building department, and in terms of the planning commission, I think you said that there were a lot of applications made last year for many beautiful homes, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, any applications made last year for commercial properties among all those applications that were made last year?
You know, I can't remember, I'm sorry.
None that you can remember of, but there were literally many, many made for homes.
Sure.
Which is predominantly what Hinckley is comprised of, beautiful residential community. Okay, I don't have anything further, but I might want to have a word somehow.
Okay.
Thank you, nothing further.
All right. Any commissioners have questions?
Yeah, I do. And thank you for being here, Mr. Wilson. Just got, I guess, quick question or two. First off, there was reference to Hinckley Township's 2015 comprehensive plan. Were you involved in that?
No, that happened just before I came in, I believe. To think about that.
Either in your
just
official
finishing
capacity
up.
or as a resident, were you involved with the planning at all?
No.
Okay. And since that was adopted, and of course as a zoning inspector, you kind of get involved with not only talking with residents and businesses about the implementation of that into the zoning, but also the township trustees. Have you ever had any conversation whatsoever regarding a joint economic development agreement as part of the recommendation that was in that comprehensive plan?
No, not personally.
Okay. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
I would suggest we have a short recess.
I guess just a point of inquiry, how many people are going to be or intend to testify is the question.
There may be at most two.
Well, you may have two, but
there are other people
yeah,
here
other
that
than
may not be part of yours.
So
Oh, I'm
one.
sorry, yeah, I might have an issue I want to raise with Mr. Lyons before that happens.
Okay, I just want to know whether we ought to take a little bit longer than a 10-minute break is the question, is whether, if we're going to go in until much longer.
Dan, I don't have anything further. I mean, if there's going to be some additional testimony, I do have a question, Mr. Lyons.
Okay,
I wanna ask off the record.
Well, with regard to a break, what do the commissioners?
It's hard to judge when we don't really know.
All right, and is there any objection to a break here?
I'm good with a short break.
Okay.
Not an hour break, preferably,
Okay,
but.
all right.
Right.
10-minute break then?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, that's fine.
Okay, we'll take. Let's reconvene at 1 o'clock,
Okay.
and.
That's a critical issue.
minutes after 1, and we were not complete with the township's presentation. So, Mr. Schrader, will you have another witness?
Yes. There are 3 trustees, 2 of whom have indicated while they oppose the annexation, they're not going to be testifying because they feel like we've gotten, or we will have gotten out what we need with the testimony of trustee Melissa Augustine.
I did not anticipate speaking today, but I'll be sworn in whenever you're ready.
Raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that your testimony will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. So I'm trustee Melissa Augustine. I have been a Hinckley Township trustee. This is my 5th year. And I just wanted to clarify a couple things. I can't imagine the position that you're in, so just based on some of the things that I've heard, I wanted to offer some insight based on my knowledge in the 5 years that I've served Hinckley Township. And I have to apologize to Drug Mart because one of the things that was said was that we didn't really reach out to you between the time that we initially had voted against the CRA and when we approved it. And I don't believe that that is the full truth based on my knowledge. Bethany at the Medina County Economic Development was working with us as our liaison to have conversations with Drug Mart. And further, I know that Trustee Sweattick had a phone conversation with Steve Ferris at the earlier part of this year. So I just wanted to clarify that. Sorry, I'm a little nervous. The BZA did approve the variances in December 2021. The property was purchased, the final purchase happened in December 2022. That was after the CRA did not pass in June of 2022. So I don't know if that's a relevant component to this conversation. As far as JED conversation, I know that there was a study done with Brunswick in 2008. I have studied that information at length, but it really didn't go anywhere. I know Trustee Burns, who ended his term in 2021, did have conversation with Brunswick about a JED, and I don't know the extent of that. And I think that one of the other questions was if had there been potential businesses that had come to that corner and expressed interest, and we did. We had several actually, but the ones that I can think of right off the top of my head are Tire Max and Suburban Transportation. I know that there was a senior housing project that was potentially going to be coming in there, and I don't remember the time frame for that. And then my last issue, oh, I'm sorry, I have 2 more. We are really concerned about Brunswick zoning. We don't know Brunswick zoning. That's a big concern for us. One of the biggest things that I hear from our residents in Hinckley Township, which we've heard over and over and over again, Hinckley is a residential area, is that the car dealerships and all of these businesses in Brunswick on 303, oftentimes their light pollution is affecting our residents. We've got a corner here that will be right next to a senior housing development. What does Brunswick zoning look like for our Hinckley Township residents? And lastly, Commissioner Hambley, you had stated that West 130th and 303 is a high accident area. It is. I just would like to state that in my conversations with our police and fire departments, we're often the first ones there. And that's all I have.
Okay. I just had a couple of quick questions.
Yes.
I apologize that you didn't know you were going to speak.
Didn't.
But you did a great job.
Thanks.
So the question I have is, your comprehensive plan talks about cooperative efforts with neighboring communities to make this a commercial type business corridor, that is West 130th Street. Are the trustees still open to, despite the annexation effort, to a JED discussion with the city?
Absolutely, and I feel like that is part of our comprehensive plan, which is our guiding light for all of our zoning. We have always worked collectively with Brunswick. We have no animosity. It's always been a beautiful neighborly relationship, and we'd like to absolutely maintain that. So any way that we can do that, and if that's by a conversation of a JED, then that's what we would do.
Okay, and I've done JEDs all over the state. They require negotiation, they require the drafting of a contract, they oftentimes require an election, all kinds of, not always, but sometimes. But I just want to make sure that the trustees, it's clear the trustees are still committed to the comprehensive plan and still committed to looking through a JED that's favorable both to yourself and to Brunswick.
I can only speak for myself as a trustee, but like I said, our comprehensive plan is guidance for all of our zoning, so we consistently look at it as a gauge for the direction that we're gonna take in the township.
Thank you, that's all I have. Appreciate it.
Mr. Kelvin?
Yeah, just a couple things. Do you remember when the abatement application was submitted by Drug Mart, roughly?
The abatement
The
application?
CRA application that was,
I think the first time we started having conversations with Bethany about the possibility of it was May of 2020. Because really, Drug Mart really never came to us, right? They went to Medina County Economic Development, which is why I was really surprised to hear that there was no conversation at all between the 7 months when it was first denied of June of last year and our last meeting when we rescinded it and went ahead and approved it.
okay. So again, let me just touch on that. So there was, how long was it between when the abatement was denied and when this annexation petition was filed?
Just off the top of my head, I don't have my meeting
Roughly,
minutes in
yeah.
front of me. I think that we denied the CRA in June of 2022. The Drug Mart took possession of the property in December 2022, and the application for annexation came across my desk maybe February 23.
And in those 7 months, did you ever reach out to Drug Mart directly?
That's not what trustees do. 3 of us work collectively. We were working with Medina County Economic Development to be the liaison for those conversations. That's how we work.
So you don't reach out directly to them, but you had an expectation that Drug Mart would reach out directly to you regarding the
No,
abatement and
Bethany,
not work through
Bethany
Bethany?
was doing the converse,
Okay.
she was having conversations, and I know that trustee Sweattick did reach out to Drug Mart.
Do you know if that was before or after the annexation was filed?
Off the top of my head, would say after.
Okay. So, to your knowledge, no township trustees reached out directly to Drug Mart in that 7-month period?
It just is not a way that we proceed in a township. It's not a council member who takes care of one district and can reach out on behalf of their district. The way a township trustee works is that I am one of 3. So if I reach out, I have to reach out for all 3. It has to be a conversation that's had in an open meeting where we all 3 agree. So that's why I have not reached out personally. Trustee Astral has not reached out personally. Trustee Sweattick has not reached out personally. We were working specifically with Medina County Economic Development, who, as I said earlier, was the force and the office that was used for Drug Mart to communicate with us that they were interested in the CRA. Actually, Drug Mart has never been to any of our meetings to offer the CRA application.
I guess I'm a little confused. You told me that trustee Sweattick did reach out directly to Drug Mart, but then just a couple
It was
minutes ago
after
you said-
conversation publicly.
But one of your trustees has reached out?
Yes.
Directly, okay, just want to clarify.
But not during the time when we were negotiating this, having conversations about the CRA. The middle person was Bethany at Medina County Economic Development.
So your contention is that after the trustees voted down the CRA, you were still negotiating it? Is that accurate?
No, I'm saying that our liaison has had conversation with Drug Mart, and what was stated here was, and I quote, 7 months without a word. And Hinckley Township was having conversation with Drug Mart via Bethany.
Were you present at the hearing where the CRA application was voted down?
Yes.
And how did you vote?
Which time?
Any of the times?
The first time I voted no, the second time I voted yes.
Okay, can you give me a little bit of, what your thinking was on those particular votes?
If you go back and look at our minutes, I was very specific in September of last year that based on my research, and having conversations with zoning people all around Medina County, and in having conversations with trustees in other townships such as Brunswick Hills, that if we really wanted to move forward with Drug Mart and we were in fear of abatement, we should probably even match their abatement. So I had a change of heart, if you will.
So you voted against it back in June, and you voted for it last week, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. One second, please. Are you aware of a Zoom call that happened with, I'm sorry, I don't know Monique's last name, but Monique, who was a trustee, Discount Drug Mart in Bethany during
No.
the abatement process? Would it surprise you to know that that conversation occurred?
If I have no knowledge of it, yes, it would be a surprise to me.
Okay, thank you. No further questions.
Hello.
Hello, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Pete Augustine. You're one of three trustees, correct?
Correct.
In the township, and I think Mr. Schroeder made the comment that all three trustees oppose the annexation petition that's the subject of today's hearing.
That's correct.
Okay. And what are your colleagues' names, the other two trustees?
Pardon me?
Nothing.
The other two trustees, what are their names?
Trustee Asherle and Trustee Sweattick.
Trustee Sweattick is seated to my right,
Yes.
and he's got some relation to one of the commissioners.
Yes.
Do you know how he's related?
They are married.
Okay. In terms of the, thank you for that, and I have nothing, no other further comment about that. In terms of last week, I believe you just testified that the trustees approved a CRA application for Drug Mart after
Correct.
previously voting it down. Did Drug Mart request you to reconsider this CRA application in Hinckley?
No, sir.
So you did this on your own,
Correct.
in anticipation of today's hearing to some extent?
Well, because I had a change of heart in September and I wanted to make a wrong right. So I offered the opportunity to the other trustees to rescind and revote, and they agreed.
Okay, that's fine. I don't think that I have anything further at this point, but thank you.
Thank you.
Just one question. For townships, the CRA actually goes through the county Department of Economic Development. Is that
Correct.
So they do all the paperwork, they do the figures, they do the whole bit, and they recommend to you what might make sense. Is that fair to say?
Correct. We've had no dealings with Drug Mart as a township board of trustees. As far as application, any type of paperwork, it's all been done through Medina County Economic Development.
And that's because that's the way it's supposed to be, right?
That's my understanding.
Because ultimately, once you approve it, it still has to be approved, the CRA still has to be approved at the county level.
Correct.
Ultimately by the commissioners, correct?
Correct.
Okay, that's all.
One moment. Wait
sorry.
a second.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify, while economic development, they handle the paperwork, correct, related to the CRA, but it's still up to the township whether to approve or deny.
It's up to the township to approve or deny, but all of our relationship and conversations and liaisonship has happened through Medina County Economic Development, to my knowledge.
Other than the Zoom meeting.
Like I said, I have no knowledge of that.
All right, thank you.
I,
All right.
I just want to give you an opportunity to correct, because I think you just misspoke, and it just might have been the question. You had stated all three of the trustees had voted down the CRA. Did you mean to say that?
Did he say the CRA, or all three were against the annexation was what I thought was stated?
Oh, okay, I thought he said CRA. Sorry.
Yeah, just to qualify, is Hinckley Township a member of the Medina County Economic Development Corporation?
That's a question I don't have an answer for, Commissioner Hamlin.
Okay,
I
all right.
apologize.
Secondly, but you do acknowledge the Medina County Economic Development Corporation, Bethany Dentler, administers the CRA program for Hinckley Township, is that correct?
Correct.
And that the Hinckley Township trustees actually set the policies and the guidelines for the implementation of those tax abatement qualifications, isn't that correct?
Correct.
And it's obviously in accordance with Ohio Revised Code limitations set as to who you need to get approval from other than the trustees, such as the Board of Education.
Correct.
Okay, so I guess when the negotiations were going on with Drug Mart, and I think that alludes to some of the suggestions. There were other trustees, as I understand it. I'm the liaison for the commissioners to Economic Development Corporation, that trustees were involved in some of those prior negotiations before they brought the CRA agreement to you for action in June of 2022. Would that be correct?
I had no conversations with.
So you were unaware as a trustee of the delegation of that negotiation?
I'm not sure I'm understanding your question.
Well, Economic Development Corporation does the negotiation with a trustee present, just as the county commissioners end up involved in some of these issues, and that other trustees and commissioners are made aware of those discussions.
That is correct, and so we appointed trustee Asherle to be the liaison for the conversations, but those were conversations between herself and
Correct.
Medina County Economic
Correct.
Development.
And then they're officially brought to the board for that discussion and deliberation.
Correct.
In which case, the Board of Trustees can take action or choose not to take action further pending further discussion. You're not required to act in a single meeting. If there are questions that need of substance that need to be acted upon or other parties involved in that discussion, certainly the trustees can act in more than one session. And in fact, in following sessions, you would very easily be able to, had you rejected that, you could have subsequently at a next meeting or any meeting following that, reversed that decision, correct?
That's correct. We had many discussions on this.
Okay, all right.
For many
all right.
meetings.
Okay, all right. Why did you initially vote to reject the 50% tax abatement
There were
CR
two
agreement
reasons.
negotiated? Go
That's
ahead,
a good
please.
question. The two reasons were, number one, that we had so many different opportunities at that corner. It was a highly sought after corner. And the second one was because one of the conversations that trustee Asher had brought up was that she would like to see smaller companies like a mom and pop type commerce there, and I supported that as well.
Okay.
I have a question too, and I think this is implicit in all of this, but I just to for the sake of making it clear, there's some opposition obviously from the trustees on the annexation itself, but just to kind of clarify or amplify, there's no resistance anymore. Maybe there was in what you just mentioned in terms of the evolution of the discussion about Drug Mart, but is there any opposition on the part of the township to Drug Mart being in that location in Hinckley Township?
No, sir. I think the only thing that we, and speaking for myself on behalf of the Hinckley Township residents, is that I'm opposed to annexation. Based on our vote, I would say that the board fully supports Drug Mart being there and has offered the CRA.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let me ask you a couple other questions. First off, for you as a township to grant a 100% tax abatement, you need to get the approval of the school board based on the way the law is written.
Correct.
Is that correct?
That is correct. And when we speak school board, and I know Commissioner Handley had mentioned it as well, it's Brunswick City Schools, just so everyone has that.
And Brunswick City Schools, am I correct in saying Brunswick City Schools is not too liberal about approving 100% tax abatements?
I can't speak to that. I don't have that information, and I'm not comfortable speaking on behalf of that board.
Okay. Have you made efforts, has the Board of Trustees made any effort to talk to the school system about a larger tax abatement than 50%?
It's my understanding that Trustee Sweattick did reach out to the school board to have conversation. I don't know what that conversation consisted of or what it came of it.
But you do know nothing ever came of it? They didn't approve it, or?
I haven't heard anything, so I assume nothing came of it.
Okay. That's all. Thank you, I appreciate it.
Any other questions based on that?
Sorry. Just for the records, City of Brunswick and Brunswick City Schools are two separate entities, right?
Correct.
Okay.
But we have two different school districts in Hinckley Township. That's why I mentioned that. We have Highland School District and Brunswick City School District.
Understood. I'm just trying to make it clear that Brunswick City Schools and the city are not the same entity, so there's no underhanded, they denied the 100%, so that this could be handled.
No, they're two different entities.
Okay. Thank you.
Nothing.
Okay, I think that's it. Thank you.
Thanks.
And that's all the witnesses we have. I think at this point,
All right, so the exhibits would, how many exhibits did you have? Just the one?
we admit.
Okay. All right, at this point, that concludes the necessary parties, and we will move to any other, are there any other individuals who would like to testify? I see two at this point, yes.
Just a quick question before, maybe this is a good time for it, or maybe it's not. But could we confirm what the exhibits were that the petitioner admitted as well? Because I had a list, I had a couple numbers missing, and I don't think you started at one, maybe?
I did not. I went out, I had pre-numbered them, and then other people admitted them.
Okay.
So I went a little out of order.
Okay.
Let's clear that up. If
Is
you
it
want
okay
to
to
come
do that
up
now?
and, yeah, why don't you come up and let's just take a quick look at those.
Yes, I started with 2,
Okay.
3, 4, did not have a 5, so I
Yep.
skipped 5.
And then 6 through 11 were
6
your
through
letters.
11 were the letters, and then I have 13. And that's it.
Double check.
And the
13,
number,
yeah.
the first one that you were using, I believe, was the petition itself.
Yeah.
We'll be able to sort this out after the hearing,
Yeah.
for sure.
After.
Okay, yeah.
We're good. Thank you.
All right, real good. And you had how
I
many?
just had the CRA, City of Brunswick CRA Resolution 101-09, which I think marked City 1.
Yes.
Brunswick 1, yep.
B1, we called it.
B1, sorry.
All right, very good. Thank you. And so we'll now move, and we will address, after the conclusion of the other witnesses, then I'll ask the attorneys to make any closing statements, try to wrap it up and make your points, and then we'll discuss whether any kind of written follow-up would be necessary in briefs or anything. All right, and I think two people identified themselves. And first, sir, would you take the podium and state? Well, we'll swear you in first.
There you go, Mike.
Do you swear or affirm that your testimony will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
My name's Tom Tomolowitz. I've lived in Hinckley 55 years. I'm kind of speaking for two of the former trustees that I served with or under. I was on the board of the Hinckley Zoning Appeals for 29 years. I've been retired about 15 years. I was hoping to enjoy my retirement, but apparently not. I have a problem with conflict of interest regarding Colleen Schveddick and Stephen Hamley presiding at this meeting. One, I have to confront them because that's what the Ohio Ethics Commission states. Okay, I gotta try to read my notes here. Maybe glasses would help. According to Ohio Revised Code 2101.06 stipulates that if they recuse themselves, a probate judge would appoint a special master. The history of Colleen Schveddick, who I'm very fond of, she served as a Hinckley clerk and as fiscal officer from 2004 to 2005. She was clerk from 2004 to 2005, then Hinckley fiscal officer from 2006 to 2017. She's married to current Hinckley trustee Jack Schveddick. Commissioner Hamley was originally his history, according to his biography. He was councilman from Ward 1 from 1990 to 1991. Ward 1 is where this annexation would be destined for. He was at large 1994 to 1996. He also chaired the city's Planning and Zoning Committee and Economic Development Committee in the early 1990s. He still resides on Grafton Road in Ward 1. And I imagine he's been a long time politician from Brunswick. He's very well connected to all the ward councilmen and so forth. His oath of office says he should be impartial during this hearing. When he was explaining the budgeting process in Brunswick, he said "we," speaking for Brunswick, which I think shows no impartiality. Okay. petition was filed on behalf of West 130th Route 303 LLC. This was news to me. They were the original vote for denial was June 7th, 2022. West 130th Route 303 LLC was incorporated November 2022. I disagree some with Trustee Augustine as far as the, I'll call it the symbolic vote. There was a, in the January 3rd, 2023 Hinckley organizational meeting, they approved a 50% tax abatement, and it was automatic. So Drug Mart didn't even have to come to us. And this vote that was taken recently, in my mind, is symbolic. Okay. Part of this, in this petition for annexation, it's stated by Attorney Colvin pursuant to section 70902 of the Ohio Revised Code. This encompasses section 70902 to 70911 of the Revised Code. Attorney Schrader disagrees on me on this point, but section 709024 is contained within these sections. And in this part of these sections, and here the words, I guess, can be legally parsed, but it states that there should be an investment of $10 million and a payroll of at least $1 million. When Bethany Dentler provided reasons for the tax abatement, she stated the investment from then Isomer Drug Mart, not Route West 130th Route 303 LLC, was for the investment was $7.2 million. $3.5 million of that was for payroll. So that would have complied there. Oh no, I'm sorry, it was $7.2 million total investment, $1.1 million payroll. And that's what I meant to say. There was some discussion at the hearing. It was a YouTube video. I watched it 4 times. At no time, which I disagree with Colleen, did the Hinckley trustees say they didn't want the Drug Mart there. At no time. The trustees denied a tax abatement, which I guess was their right. Personally, having been involved with zoning prior or following the CRA, it's intended that some tax abatement accompany it. Part of the discussion talked about commercial, because that part of the CRA is for commercial, industrial, residential. It doesn't reference retail. So they kind of agreed that retail could fit in with commercial. I tried to find a definition between commercial and retail in the Ohio Revised Code. I found something under 709.192 commercial when it comes to they differentiate between commercial and retail, and the retail is left up to the tax valuation for this property, and this is designated as such by the tax commissioners. And then part of this, but one of our attorneys that we had when I was on the Board of Zoning Appeals, Don Wagner, he liked the terminology bifurcation, and he had, I think, 100% batting average for us. But this is kind of bifurcated, in my opinion, because part of Brunswick, or the Discount Drug Mart, can be qualified as commercial because of the pharmacy and the flu shots and so forth, but the rest is the retail. From what I understood, going further, Brunswick doesn't have a right to annex retail property, and that could be discussed further. The obvious reason for this annexation is financial on Drug Mart's part, and the point should be moot now, since, again, I referred to the Hinckley trustees organizational meeting on January 3rd, prior to the filing of this petition for annexation. that the request for 50% 15-year tax abatement in the CRA would be automatically granted. And I have notes of that meeting. So that was before this petition for annexation, which I had dated January 31st, 2023. That's when it was filed. But the original June 7, 2022 request was approved as of January 3rd, 2023. This, everybody talks about these wonderful services from Brunswick. Everybody's overlooking the schools and the Hinckley Township abatement policy, and these are the numbers that Bethany Denver provided, and she was unsure. But Hinckley Township would have, I'll go first with Brunswick. Brunswick would be abating between $71,000 and $83,000 per year. So Hinckley would be approximately half of that. So you're looking at a total for, let's see, if the estimated for Brunswick is $1,065,000 to $1,245,720. On top of this, one thing I didn't understand when I'm still in business, so as a business person, why Drug Mart would want to pay the municipal income tax. And I would estimate that the store would, on a payroll of $1.1 million, you're looking at $22,000. And I would guess that for that store to be built there, the profitability would have to be at least $1 million, probably more. So that would another $20,000. So that would come to, say, $42,000 minimum over 15 years or forever. Hinckley has no income tax. And if Drug Mart remains in Hinckley, their total tax savings would be about the same as 100% 15-year. Also, if Drug Mart wanted to be in Brunswick, there was property available west of the pizza store between the Goodyear tire plant and the pizza shop. I don't know if they made any attempts to buy that property or not. Okay. I don't know if any of the commissioners watched the YouTube meeting of June 7th, 2022. I did it by approximately 4 times. There's also, because I referenced Ohio Revised Code 709.024, the Ohio Bar Association put out a informative bulletin on what you should know about annexation, and Attorney Schrader actually contributed to that. The annexation is strictly for financial gains. It's a means of it's a matter of choice. Medina County Water and Sewer is already supplied if the store remains in Hinckley. Police, fire, and safety service can respond more quickly than Brunswick because of traffic congestion along Center Road in Brunswick. One thing which Mike, when I was on the board, he was with the prosecutor's office. He was our liaison, but he gave us a worksheet called the Duncan Factors, and that's what we had to use for determining whether or not a hardship should be granted or not. We had a specific case with David Terry in this same industrial area where we denied it and was strictly for financial gain. That's what the judge determined. It was a Medina County court. I have it here someplace, but the civil court trial. And the one factor which outweighed the others was that he already had a profitable storage operation, and he wanted the Hinckley Board of Zoning Appeals to give him a more profitable result, and we denied it, and the court upheld our decision. Same thing that they're asking for here. You're a quasi-judicial body. Drug Mart is asking you to give them a larger profit because of the tax abatement, and it's not right. There's another drugstore in Hinckley, it's CVS. They didn't ask for tax abatement. They just built. Why should you or anybody favor Drug Mart or give them a competitive advantage. That's not the purpose of being a commissioner. Okay. Hinckley in the past has had several non-annexation agreements, and I have a 1988 in this packet. I can submit it, Supreme Court reversal of a annexation that was denied by the commissioners at that time. For Brunswick Hills wanted to next, property holders in Brunswick Hills wanted to annex to Brunswick. Medina County Commissioners denied it. The Court of Common Pleas upheld it, and the Ohio Supreme Court reversed it, and that was in 1988. And the Senate Bill 5, whenever that passed, I think, which is the reason for the revisions in the Ohio Revised Code versus annexation, came about. There's some notes that I have from the, which I can submit if you'd like, from the Hinckley Trustee Special Meeting, Organizational Meeting. Ms. Astro made a motion to approve the agreement of terms and post 94 CRA zone at a 50% tax abatement. Augustine second, vote, Augustine yes, Astro no, Shreddick yes. So it was a done deal at that time. So I don't understand the reason for petition other than Drug Mart is shopping for a better deal for themselves. The court case was a Supreme Court case that I have some highlights here that I'll quote. But Judith Riedel Rapp was the mayor, and she was a long-serving mayor in Brunswick at that time. And this was mainly in annexation battles over water. If someone wanted water, Brunswick said you can have our, but it wasn't Brunswick's water to have. You can have our water, but we need you to annex. And then there was a judgment entry mentioned. I think this goes back to 1977. But she wrote a letter to the Supreme Court, and then she said, if you recall, the city agreed to allow various areas of both Brunswick Hills Township and Hinckley Township. It doesn't say areas of Hinckley Township to tap into the Brunswick water system without a requirement of annexation. There have always been these agreements, and Melissa reaches out that she's compatible with the city of Brunswick and wants to be a good neighbor. In 55 years, that's the first person I've heard say that, because we've always fought annexation. Part of that settlement, Brunswick, and I'll have a copy of it, on this water disagreement, Don Wachner, who was the township's attorney at the time, was preparing a lawsuit. And then Brunswick said, hold it. And we decided we are going to be good neighbors. They sent us a check for $20,000 for legal fees. Said, forget it, guys, we're okay. So the one part which really greatly upsets me is talking about all these great city services. And I still remember, like 2 years ago, whoever the service director is, because I go to the rec center in the morning to work out, like 5 in the morning. The snow was piled way over on the sidewalks. So I don't know if it's his responsibility to clear the sidewalks or not. People were walking in the street at 5 in the morning. You couldn't see them. I almost hit someone. The students from the high school walking the streets. So I don't consider that good services management. So the thing with the schools, which you should be aware of if you're not, in its wisdom, I don't know the purpose when you put up an auction. Hinckley, the Highland School District decided to build a new elementary school in Hinckley, and they built a big, beautiful school. The old school had approximately 340 students in it, and they auctioned it off. A company called Excel bought it, and they are opening up Hinckley Prep this August, okay? And it's a charter school. Again, why they didn't review the bid, maybe they had to take the highest bid, period. But it's just ridiculous. The part of a friend of mine who she said she'd write a letter to you. He was assistant superintendent in Oberlin. She was in different positions in City of Elyria. She does not like charter schools. I asked her, I said, well, what's going to happen with surrounding school districts? She said, well, in her experience, if a school had 300, 350, 25 to 35 kids would opt for the charter school. For whatever reason, they were going to opt for the charter school. That's where the parents wanted them to go. And the cost of educating a student in Brunswick schools is approximately $15,000. Approximately $7,000 of that comes from state and federal funding. That state and federal funding from Brunswick or anywhere gets on the bus with those kids going to this Hinckley Prep school. Drug Mart is interested in getting $600,000 or $700,000 in their business, so I understand that. I still don't understand. They'll pay more than that in municipal income taxes. But my mouth is getting dry, so I apologize for that. But if 100 kids go, it's K through 5 elementary, that's $700,000. A lot of those kids are from Hinckley because they're in a Brunswick school district. They can vote for the school board that will grant or approve tax abatements, but they can't vote for the councilman like in Ward 1 or at large or the mayor or whoever, the city officials. I mean, that's, taxation without representation. So I think they're being denied that vote also. So I emailed Sherman Misak, he's with Education Ohio. He's area coordinator for Region 9. And I asked him about this state and federal funding following the students who opt for the charter school.
To Milowitz, I'm going to ask you, how are you going to, the school funding issue, is that going to relate to the annexation?
Well, yes.
Okay, well, I'm
well, no, Mike.
Well, I just want, I want to press.
The local property taxes go to fund the schools. And the discussion, the municipal income tax goes to fund all these city officials that are talking here today. Gotcha. It does nothing for the schools. Okay. Somebody has to speak for the schools. I'm the first one here, okay. Period. My daughter says, don't say period, Dad. But he agreed with what I said. He said, yep.
I'm going to object on a hearsay of what someone told this gentleman who's giving testimony.
I have the emails. Okay? I'll submit them as evidence.
I think that you are permitted to testify, but emails, I have to agree with the objection. I don't think you should be introducing emails of other people. This is your opportunity to testify. So I think you are limited in your ability to submit statements from other people.
Well, is someone disagreeing with the cost to educate a student in Brunswick, the $15,000?
No, we'll stipulate that.
Is someone going to disagree that $7,000 approximately is from state and federal funding?
We'd be willing to stipulate that too.
Okay. This is, I gotta find this because this is the icing on the cake. Give me a minute, please. I got too many notes. Since Commissioner Hambley is a history aficionado and degreed as such, I gotta find it. This was, and this is public record. It was a newspaper article. Back in 2006, the Medina County Gazette was supporting a sales tax, a county sales tax to support the local schools. Steve Hamley wrote a very good article in December regarding that. He said, I am very concerned about our schools. That's what he said then. And the fact that citizens generally do not like property tax increases. In this article, he further states that I am not sure if it is the job of the county to fund our schools. I say the reverse is true. It's not the purpose of the county commissioners to defund our schools. And by granting these tax abatements, that's exactly what they're doing. Brunswick, to me, looks pretty much built out. So the only thing they can do is grab for this 2% municipal income tax. And that's about it. And again, it does nothing for the schools. If you deny the petition, and if Drug Mart was sincere in the negotiations through Bethany Dendler for the 50%, that they would have been happy with that. I say this January 3rd organizational meeting granted them that, obviously. And if the board denies the annexation, the Brunswick City Schools, they have 50% more in local property taxes to fund education. And that's about it. And then Drug Mart will get what they originally asked for. So, in my opinion, the January 3rd notes from the organization, January 3rd organizational meeting, the point was moot before the petition was filed. They gave Discount Drug Mart, who, again, it was Discount Drug Mart, Isomer Corp. At the June 7th, 2002 meeting, this West 130th Route 303 LLC didn't exist until November 9th in 2022. So I guess that's about it. So if you deny it, I think it's a win-win situation for the Brunswick City School District and for Drug Mart. And that's it. And again, I think Commissioners Hambley and Sweattick should abstain from voting. So, and again, every 5 years you're supposed to update yourself on Ohio ethics. So I don't know how you could overlook that. Thank you. Any questions?
Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Timowitz? No? Okay, thank you.
I do.
I'm going to let you go first, and I might have a couple. Go ahead.
Oh, okay, it deals with the, and I do appreciate your interest, your passion in this, and thank you for, if you will, communicating to the commissioners your concerns regarding the ethics. It has caused me to certainly review the law, review the various policies, the opinions, the official opinions of the Ethics Commission when it comes to this. And very clearly, I can say that, and I had conversations with the county prosecutor regarding this too, to make sure my review is correct and understanding. Certainly from my standpoint, I have no financial interest in this project, no financial benefit to me or my household. Excuse me, this is my, in reviewing it. And in terms of my property, I have no direct benefit. It is not adjacent to it. It doesn't change the value of my property one way or the other of that. The nature of your opinion about this conflict is, well, let's just say, without a basis of law or legal precedent that I can find in my review. And lastly, I'll talk about what I mentioned about we in terms of budgeting for safety forces, recognizing the county commissioners largely fund the sheriff's department. It's one of our largest expenses, and they provide mutual aid to every other police department and fire department, safety forces in Medina County. So when I say we include mutual aid in our overall budget. So that was the intent of my comment. It was not as a councilman for 5 years in the 1990s.
You were not. I'm not accusing you of financial gain. I'm talking to you about doing more as far as keeping your political base happy. I mean, at a campaign fundraiser.
No, I'm going to stop. I don't think this is your opportunity to testify. You have.
Okay.
And then Mr. Hambley probably should have asked you questions if he wanted to. He made a statement. And so I'm just going to ask you to stop.
Well, I could have gone through a checklist of, do you think it's a financial interest? Do you think, but at this
Well,
point,
I understand you could, but the purpose here is to hear evidence regarding the annexation. So and you have made your point. I understand that. So, did you have some
I
questions?
do have a couple questions, sir.
Oh,
I understand you've got a lot of passion. You are a resident in Hinckley.
correct.
And you've been a longtime resident in Hinckley. Plus,
Correct.
you've been very involved, it appears, over an extended period of years in the local government, correct?
Correct.
In Hinckley. You mentioned, you're not an attorney, I believe you said you're a business.
No, but I've stayed at a Holiday Inn before.
I'm sorry.
But I've stayed at a Holiday Inn before. I'm not an attorney.
Okay, well, that's funny. Thank you for that. All right, so you quote a case, though, Duncan versus Middlefield. It's a Ohio Supreme Court case, and I'm sure you're aware, because you cited it, that it deals with area variances, and there's 9 criteria to determine whether an area variance should be granted, correct? If you're familiar with the case, which you just cited in your notes.
Say no.
Area variance.
Should be granted for annexation.
Not annexation, that's my point. It's an area variance case, Duncan versus Middlefield, is it not? And it sets the 9 criteria that the Ohio Supreme Court has established as to whether or not a zoning board, a local zoning board, should grant an area variance.
No, I'm not following
You're
the
not, you
question.
don't follow me.
No, sir.
Okay, well, you've been standing at the podium for several minutes and you've been reading from whatever's in front of you. May I see what you've been reading from, please?
Okay, sure, certainly. Let me put it in order.
Thank you. All right, and you acknowledge that this is what you've been reading from, these various documents which you've handed?
Yes.
I just asked to make them all part of the record, and I'm gonna sit down. Just
I'm
make them all
gonna
part of the
object.
record.
I don't think any of that has any relevance whatsoever to what we're doing. One's a zoning case, and normally I keep my mouth shut.
I would say these have not been really identified for purposes of becoming evidence in this matter. I'm not
Okay.
sure that you really want to do that.
All right, well, just the point is that it's not typical to have a witness read, and I didn't object, and I sat and listened politely, but it is certainly unusual to have a witness, especially a witness that apparently is giving expert opinion on various issues, to be allowed to read from documents, and at this point, I'll sit down. Here you are, sir. Thank you.
Okay.
Let the record note my objection, though.
All right. I think that's it. I don't think anybody has any more questions, and we thank you.
Okay, thanks, Mike.
And one other individual, I believe, wanted to testify.
I actually have copies.
Please raise your right
Oh,
hand. Do you swear or affirm that your testimony will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Could you say your name also?
Cindy Engelman, and I'm a resident of Hinckley Township. I have copies of the things that I'm just going to reference, and I
Okay.
have actually a copy for each commissioner and yourself.
Okay.
and I guess an extra.
Let's, how many documents do you have?
It's only one document,
Okay.
and it's,
We'll
I got
mark
5
that
here.
as, what's your first name?
Cindy
Cindy, oh, let's see, what's your last name?
Engelman,
Engelman.
E.
We'll mark it E1, how about that?
Let's do CE1.
CE1.
Thank you.
And just leave that there, okay.
Yeah. So the first 2 pages I'll reference. The last page is basically what I'm going to say here today. Actually, it says good morning, but now it's good afternoon. So, good afternoon. My name is Cindy Engelman. I'm a resident of Hinckley Township, and I support the township's objection to the annexation petition. And I've got to put on these glasses, and I lost the other half of them, so bear with me. One of the important questions to be considered is what the detriment would be to Hinckley Township if the annexation were to be approved. If I may so stipulate, the creation of the CRA zones in Hinckley was for the very purpose to encourage development east along the West 130th corridor and to discourage annexation. I've compiled the table of the 2023 property taxes for the post-94 CRA zone properties, as this is the area generally under discussion today, that being the southeast corner, 303 and 130th Street. So if you look to this table, first of all, the data was extracted from the county GIS system and cross-correlated with the county auditor's website. And so I list individually the parcel numbers that are part of that post-94 CRA zone, what their annual taxes for this year, and then I indicate what school district those properties, their taxes go to. So the front page are the ones that include the corner under discussion, as well as all the other Brunswick City School District properties, and the second page in that same area shows the remaining properties, and those are under the Highland School District. So the point is that the total 2023 taxes for this post-94 CRA zone for this year would total just under $254,000. And that's today. These properties are a mixture of residential and business, but for future developments would see the taxable values only increase. For instance, the property at issue today represents today just a little over $12,000 in 2023 taxes of that $245,000 total. And after development will expectedly increase significantly. And why is this relevant? Because it is important to step back and look at this area as a whole and not just a single property. Surely, as one parcel is annexed away, others will follow, leading to a complete deterioration of Hinckley Township's West 130th commercial corridor, and a creeping monetary loss to Hinckley Township's tax base for years and years to come. So I sincerely hope that this will be part of your consideration in the deliberations that you have to make, and I thank you for your time.
All right, 1 second.
Mm-hmm.
Do any of the parties have questions for this witness?
I'd just like to see what it was that.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes.
Well, that, in all fairness, I guess everybody should get a copy, but I don't have enough for everybody.
I just want to take a look at it.
Sure.
If you have a question.
That's fine. It's only fair.
Yeah. I'm sorry, ma'am. You compiled this yourself? I assume you got it out of public records?
Yes, as I indicate, it comes off of the county GIS system, and then there's a link to the tax records off the county auditor system in Medina County.
And if you submitted this then to as part of the hearing? I see that it has your hearing testimony attached. I don't know.
Yeah, that's, I prepared my script of what I was going to say here today, and that's what I passed out. That is correct.
Yeah, and I don't doubt you, but I just, on behalf of the City of Brunswick, I just don't have any way to really, what's been submitted to determine its accuracy or lack of accuracy based on its face. That's my only point. So just note that, please.
No other questions? Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. At this point, is there any other evidence that any of the necessary parties want to present?
Not on behalf of the township.
All right, then we will entertain closing arguments. We'll start with the petitioner. If you want to try to summarize.
Doesn't matter where?
No, right, probably right.
Up here?
Up here is probably good.
Okay, just wanted to start by saying that both myself and Discount Drug Mart, we fully support Commissioner Swedick, Commissioner Hambley. We have no issues at all with their impartiality. Just wanted to state that. Thanks everybody for your time and your testimony today. I know it's a contentious issue and certainly understand all the feelings on all sides. Wanted to reiterate again, we're talking about Discount Drug Mart as the ultimate property owner here, who has been a fantastic corporate citizen. You really can't look around the county and see another corporation that does what Discount Drug Mart does. we're also talking about the rights of private property owners. So we don't necessarily, some people don't like what we're doing here, but private property owners have rights. And Discount Drug Mart is well within their rights to request this annexation. Additionally, we've talked a lot about the money, and that's been the elephant in the room. But Discount Drug Mart's a company that is owned by its employees. It's an ESOP. It's got shareholder employee owners, and it owes a fiduciary duty to them. So saving money, building properties economically is quite literally their job. And we understand that takes money out of other people's pots and so on and so forth, but they absolutely have the duty to do that for their shareholders. While this is a contentious issue, I think it's actually a pretty easy issue for the commissioners. That's what I love about the law, is that there are statutes that tell us exactly what to do. And annexation is a perfect example of that. There's, by my count, 16 things that we need to tick off the list. And we can put them all down on paper, and we can just go through them. I'll save you all that. We've been here for 4 hours now. But those are composed of procedural and substantive issues. The procedural issues, the record speaks for itself, I think, about the various affidavits, when things were filed, when they were served, all of those things. This really comes down to 2 substantive issues, I think. I thought one, but there was another one today that I'll talk about, and that's the road maintenance issue. So fundamentally, does the fact that these roads are going to be bisected cause a road maintenance issue? I think the testimony today clearly says no. We've got ODOT taking care of one road, we've got an agreement in place where the county's taking care of the other road. But also at this point, I'd like to clarify that statute, the statute that was referenced by Mr. Schrader earlier, clearly says if there's a road segmentation that causes a road maintenance issue, which this doesn't, then the city has to agree to take care of the road. There's no maintenance issue, so the city does not need to agree to take care of the road. County's taking care of the road today, they'll take care of it tomorrow. So that's issue number one. The second one is, do the benefits to this property and the surrounding areas outweigh the detriments? And the answer to that, again, clearly is yes. We've talked extensively about the building department, the real estate development process, those pieces, fire, police, EMTs, all of those benefits that the city can provide that unfortunately the township could not provide. We've also talked about the CRA. Again, it's the elephant in the room. The township could provide 50% and the city can provide 100%. It's as simple as that. While we don't like to talk about it and we don't like to talk about the money, that is probably the biggest factor, not to Drug Mart and their reason for the annexation, but in this equation. We've got to do the balancing between the detriments and the benefits, and frankly, the dollars and cents speak for themselves here. The other piece of that equation is the detriments. We've heard an attempt to establish some detriments here, but I have heard none that are valid as far as I'm concerned. So when you look at the balance of detriments, in my opinion, they're zero, and of benefits, they are substantial. And when you weigh those two, I'm confident that the commissioners will rule in favor of the petition. Thank you.
We'll allow the city to make a statement.
Firstly, this is kind of interesting. It's like an English tribunal where the whoever's speaking is standing. That's unusual in American court systems, but it's nice to be standing here. I know this is contentious, and I speak on behalf of the City of Brunswick as its law director. Nothing but good things to say about Hinckley, and I mean that to everybody in this room, including your fire department, your police department, your building department, certainly the trustees. There's no animosity whatsoever. We have been good neighbors, I think. Obviously going back maybe to the beginning, whenever that was, and I just want to state that publicly. We didn't ask for this petition. The city didn't. Under the code, under 709 of the revised code, our obligation, once we received the petition, was to make a determination whether or not the City of Brunswick would provide services. And that's the extent of what the City Council determined, that in the event the petition is granted, the vital services, as outlined in the resolution that's submitted as part of the record, was in fact duly adopted. And that's one of the criteria.
But again, I just want to make it known that it isn't as if the City of Brunswick has designs on, I'd use the word, just overtaking or annexing or devouring West 130th Street. It's just not true. No designs on that whatsoever. There have been discussions previously, and there should continue to be discussions about a joint economic development district between Hinckley Township and the City of Brunswick as it relates to that West 130th Street corridor, which is a separate issue from today, but again, something that the city would certainly be interested in. They have pursued it in the past and would certainly be interested in continuing to pursue with the trustees for the benefit of both communities. I understand there was some discussion, at least from a resident, about the Pantex, the car dealerships, and it's not just the Pantex, it's Liberty, it's the Pantex, and how that interchange developed. It's just the way it happened. I mean, and it became a big interchange. For years, when I first came out to Brunswick as the city attorney 20 years ago, I mean, you had Strongsville, and then you had Medina, 3 and 18, and then Brunswick was forgotten. And then it goes back to Skip Trimble, who was the city manager right before I got hired, and he did a great job assembling some land, and then the rest, of course, is that it became developed into Brunswick Town Center. That corridor is developed. We have the Cleveland Clinic there now. We've got University Southwest General, which is University Hospital right next to City Hall. I mean, we've got Cleveland. We got Tri-C that has their adult learning center there. One of the gentlemen mentioned the rec center. We do have our rec center. I mean, that corridor is developed more so than Pearl Road, but certainly the 303 corridor. Myers is there. We've got a really state-of-the-art Mark store. I mean, the corridor is developed, and it's developed substantially in the last 20 years, so it's no longer just a gasoline stop between Strongsville on I-71 and Medina. We do have a very strong police department, and again, not speaking disparagingly at all, but it is a full-time police department. Our fire department is full-time. We've got trained paramedics that are always, on duty. An important point is, because I do think it's relevant as it relates to the balancing test, and that is the aerial truck that we have. And yes, it is out for repairs. Yes, I acknowledge that. But again, as I think the chief noted, those repairs are being made. Fire chief noted. The repairs are being made. It'll be back in the next 2 or 3 weeks, and that's important in terms of servicing this proposed building that Drug Mart would build. We do have our aerial truck. Yes, we provide mutual aid, and yes, we work cooperatively. So I don't want to make it sound like we're going to not use the aerial truck if for some reason, which we would disagree with, that the petition isn't granted. But we do have superior equipment, superior manpower, training, largest city in the county, in both our fire department, police department, service department, our own building department. And I just want to point that out as it relates specifically to Revised Code Section 709.02. And there's 6 criteria. I'll just talk briefly about 5, which is the balancing test that Dan talked about. And again, it's the general good of the territory proposed to be annexed and served, and the benefits of the territory proposed to be annexed surrounding area without outweighing the detriments to the territory and the surrounding territories. And there are advantages. The only detriment, and this goes to, I think, the 6th criteria, would be the 135 feet as it relates to 6, and that's the road maintenance issue. Yes, there's 135 feet that the county, at least for now, would continue to maintain under existing service agreements between Medina County and the City of Brunswick. But there's a lot of roads, and I think you heard from Paul Barnett, who's he must be somewhat, I'll say this, self-serving, but just an excellent service director. The city's lucky to have him. There's many roads that go back and forth. Yes, the county maintains. Yes, the city will maintain, and we work cooperatively with the county, with the commissioners, with our neighbors, including Brunswick Hills. And yes, there's been many annexations over the years over water with Brunswick Hills, but we work cooperatively with them. And yes, their boundary is all jagged, but it was that way from the beginning, and I don't know how that ever happened, but that's just the way the boundaries were drawn. No, and islands were created going back way before annexations, way before the 76 agreement. that you have to annex to get water in certain parts from the township of Brunswick Hills into certain parts of the city. So how those islands were created, I don't know, but that's a different issue. So just in terms of the criteria, and especially the balancing test, the benefit to the territory, and again, this is their, as private property owners, their petition, not the city's, certainly outweigh whatever small detriment there might be if the petition is granted. Thank you.
I get to go last, I guess, so I'll try to make it quick. But a couple things are important, one of which is the burden of proof here is on the petitioners, not on the township. They are the ones that are supposed to prove the 6 issues or items that you have to look at within the next 30 days under 709033A. The first 4 we stipulate to. They did them right. 5 and 6 we do object to because they didn't do them right. It's important, and I might as well say this at the outset, with all respect, and I don't want to disagree with a township citizen, but I spent 28 years as a township trustee and about 16 months as a county council person in Summit County. So I've had to make an annexation decision like a county commissioner would. And I know it's a tough decision to make. I also know that a lot of things that look to people like they might be a conflict are not. The fact is, if you're a county commissioner, you got to live somewhere in the county. So you're always making decisions that deal with where you live. So we don't have any objection to, nor do we see any conflict in the commissioners making a decision. And that's from the heart. We really do not. As a practical matter, I would hate to have spent all these hours here today and have 2 of you not be able to decide the case. We will essentially have wasted everybody's time. But let me get to those 2 issues that we do oppose this annexation on. The first of which is the general good. And the definition of that, and I'm going to read it because we've kind of tended to quote just parts of it here. On balance, the general good of the territory proposed to be annexed will be served, and the benefits to the territory proposed to be annexed and the surrounding area will outweigh the detriments to the territory proposed to be annexed and the surrounding area if the annexation is granted, if the annexation petition is granted. As used in this division, A5, of this section, surrounding area means the territory within the unincorporated area of any township located 1/2 mile or less from any of the territory proposed to be annexed. In the old days, my colleague from who representing the petitioners was right. All you had to look at was the effect on the petitioner. It was the landowner's discretion. It isn't anymore. You don't just look at what's good for the landowner. You also have to look at the benefits and detriments to the unincorporated area within 1/2 mile. And remember I said the burden of proof is on them? Nobody even talked about that in the main case of the petitioners. It was only until I asked their service director some questions about the effect on the unincorporated area within 1/2 mile, they even suggested it, or talked about it, or thought about it, I think. Frankly, they should have had a planning expert come in here and say, okay, I've analyzed the benefits and detriments to the area to be annexed and the unincorporated area within 1/2 mile, and here's what my analysis shows. They didn't. Largely what their testimony was speculation. And there are detriments. Right now, Hinckley Township is a perfect square. It's not going to be if this annexation is allowed. Right now, Hinckley Township has the authority to determine its future, what gets developed in the township. Now, they've already decided that area is for business development, the corridor there around West 130th and 303. But they get to decide what goes in there, and there's a difference between a drug mart, which they already approved, by the way, zoning-wise. They even gave it ultimately they gave it a 50% tax abatement. The fact of the matter is, if it's annexed and Drug Mart changes its mind again, first they decided they want to be in Hinckley, then they decide they want to be in Brunswick. If they decide, wait a minute, we'll build somewhere else, then that land's going to be in Brunswick, and Brunswick gets to decide what's put there. So it doesn't matter what the light pollution is, it doesn't matter what happens, and we all know, because we've all been in elected office, if you're elected to represent a city, your biggest concern is the folks living in your city, not the folks in the township around it. So the township loses control. The township still has to maintain and provide services. And here's the other curious thing about this annexation. When you look at their resolution of services, most annexations are because you don't have water. Water's already there. You don't have sewers. Sewer's already there. There's some defect in police, fire, or roads. What our department heads generally testified to is we can do at least as well, and in some cases we think better because we can respond faster and because we don't have the call volume of other communities. The fire chief proved it by showing who gives mutual aid more than the other. And again, not to be competitive, but to show that there really is no benefit as to those services in annexing. The only real benefit, even to them, is the tax abatement. And that, we believe, is outweighed by the fact they're going to be paying an income tax. So there was really no analysis of on the part of the people that are supposed to prove it, the petitioners, that somehow the benefits of this annexation outweigh the detriments, not just to the area to be annexed, but to that unincorporated area within half a mile. And I'm not going to repeat all the discussion there was as to the negatives, but there were a fair number of them. And it's not our job to show you the negatives, by the way. It's their job to prove that on balance, this annexation, the benefits outweigh detriments to that whole area. The next issue that we believe that you should turn this down. Oh, and by the way, you can turn it down if you only find one of those 6 things they didn't prove. But there's a second reason, and that is the number 6. And for 44 years, I've always told young attorneys, do not read stuff in front of the judges or the decision maker. But here I think I have to. Number 6, no street or highway will be divided or segmented by the boundary line between a township and the municipal corporation as to create a road maintenance problem, or if a street or highway will be so divided or segmented, the municipal corporation has agreed as a condition of the annexation that it will assume the maintenance of that street or highway. And for this purposes of this division, they refer to 4511. Basically what that means, it's not just township roads, it's not just city roads, it includes county and state roads. Now, there's no question they haven't agreed to maintain this as a condition of annexation. They've not even agreed to maintain it. They stood there and told you it's going to be the county that maintains it. And here's where the segmentation arises. You go, let's see, here's the state road, here's west 130th. County maintenance responsibility, this is now in the city. According to that statute, the city should have agreed as a condition of annexation to maintain this 135-foot stretch that's in yellow. Then it's back to county. And yeah, we did prove that there were, and we don't have to, by the way, they're supposed to prove that 6th section. But by way of discussing it with the gentleman from the city, at first he stated the obvious. The reason they have these maintenance agreements is stuff like that does create a road maintenance problem. Why else would you need those maintenance agreements? They agreed to that part. Then we got into some of the detail, questions about, okay, who's supposed to plow it? Who's supposed to get ice off that 135 feet? I also spent, just after high school, my first job was shoveling gravel off a Summit County engineer's truck. I can tell you, the one job they gave us college kids to do was dealing with dead animals off the street. Nobody ever wanted to do that job. And we had one that was similar to this. It was an intersection between a county and a state road. That possum traveled more in death than it did in life. When they called the county, we went out and shoveled him onto the state road. And doggone if the very next day the state hadn't shoveled him back onto the county road. That stuff exists in real life. There are maintenance issues. And what the legislature said you got to do is not, well, we'll enter into an agreement with the county and we won't maintain it until maybe we amend the agreement at some point. That's not what the legislature said you got to do. What they said you have to do is agree to maintain it, the city maintain it, as a condition of annexation. Clearly, they didn't do that. And it's not our job to prove they didn't do it. It's their job to prove that they complied with 709.033 of the revised code. So it's when you see what we were doing, and we didn't give an opening statement, so I couldn't tell you that to begin with. But at this point, what we're suggesting is those last two criterion, they have not met, and for that reason, you should deny this annexation. And there is an advantage in denying the annexation. The last lady mentioned that the only advantage to the drug mart is the tax abatement, but all of that's a disadvantage to the rest of the community. It's a disadvantage to the school system because they're losing 100% instead of 50%. So that is an additional detriment to the area to be annexed. So we would respectfully ask that you do deny this particular annexation. There is some merit to the notion that, in fact, it is detrimental to the unincorporated area of the township, and there was no testimony on the part of the petitioners showing you that on balance that wasn't the case. That's what they got to prove. They didn't prove it. And there's some utility. I'd like to end on a bright note. As my colleague, the esteemed law director for Brunswick, said, we really ought to be working on a JED. The trustee testified that they're interested in it. I'm going to tell you that I've advised that it's a good idea to sit down and negotiate that. Maybe we ought to take the next 30 days. I don't think you can't conclude these in 30 days, but it wouldn't hurt to start negotiations. And frankly, if it were denied, that may allow for more effective negotiations. It has to be good for both communities. Most JEDs are. There's a split of an income tax. That's a help for the township. Usually the township continues to control the zoning and the land use and that kind of thing. So without getting into a whole different area, there may be, as a practical matter, some serious benefits to turning this down now. And if everything goes to hell, excuse the language, they can always repetition. And probably we just told them how they can do it correctly next time. So anyway, we ask that you deny it for those two reasons. Thanks very much for your time today. I know this was a long hearing. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Is there any interest on the part of the parties to submit any written arguments?
No, please, no.
I'd be willing.
No, but could I follow up on a couple points? Is that
That's
appropriate? Yeah, okay. Just want to clarify the record briefly and just point the commissioners as you start your analysis to Mr. Lund's testimony, where he testified at length about the benefits that a discount drug mart brings to the community and to the neighboring property owners. So Mr. Schrader said we didn't testify to any of that. Well, it is our burden of proof. We testified extensively, and while I will save you all from a class about statutory construction and how to read a statute, I would just encourage you to speak with the prosecutor's office about this section that clearly says that only if there's a road maintenance issue does the county need to take care of the road. So again, I encourage you to give that some thought. I think it's pretty clear, and I hope the prosecutor's office will agree with that as well. So thank you.
All right. If there's,
Can I respond to you?
in fairness, if you want to.
It may be helpful to do a bit of a post-hearing brief. Just two quick things. If I remember correctly, the gentleman from the drug mart had indicated the benefit to the surrounding area is if you want to shop, you can shop closer. I'm not sure that's much of a benefit. And second, the other arguments might best be addressed in a brief, but certainly my memory is that the gentleman did testify that the whole reason for having a road maintenance agreement is that otherwise it does create road maintenance issues.
I have a question for the prosecutor.
Yes.
Are we required to take post-hearing briefs?
No, no.
I'm not interested in entertaining any post-hearing
Okay.
briefs.
I think we'll leave it at that. Then.
Okay.
If you're not interested, I'm not going
Thank
to
you.
write it.
I think we have plenty enough information.
And I think
that,
the time is rather short to be able to do that in the first place. And you'd probably need the record made, and I'm not sure.
We need a transcript.
Yeah.
That's good.
So it's probably impractical to do that.
Fair enough.
All right, and I'll ask one more time if there's nothing else.
I'll move we adjourn the public hearing.
Okay, the
Second.
public hearing is ended, and the commissioners under statute are required to issue a decision in 30 days. They're functioning as a quasi-judicial board, and they can deliberate in private without the necessity of a motion to go into executive session. So
Do we need
I
a
just-
roll to adjourn, Mike, on this?
Pardon me?
Do we need a roll call to adjourn on this?
No, I don't think you do.
Okay.
But there's a motion to adjourn, and
It was seconded.
seconded. Okay, Mr. Hambley?
Yes.
Ms. Swedick?
Yes.
Mr. Aaron?
Harrison.
Harrison.
Yes. Thank you.
Harrison, it's the first time I've had to say his name, Mr. Harrison. And I can't see his, forgive me.
No problem.
That was a yes.
Adjourned.
I think we are.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.